Chapter 352. Using Malicious Tricks to Hurt a Woman. Chapter 352. Using Malicious Tricks to Hurt a Woman. The King Corpse. This hairy monster was around 3 meters tall and was the fundamental foundation of the corpses, God sect, and the King Corpse. King Corpses were the highest level corpse slave. They had the innate ability to use the power of the 5 elements, as well as an iron body which was immune to most swords, sabers, and other secret attacking techniques. Each King Corpse had spent tens of thousands of years underground refining the corpse technique and absorbing plenty of corpse aura. Thus, they were one of the most terrible creatures in the world. As soon as the King Corpse appeared, the cold corpse aura, which was as dense as thick litter, spewed out from the underground and gathered by the King Corpse. The Cold Wind Island had another name called Burying Island, which was the ancient burial place of the Gu family. All Gu family's dead warriors were buried in Funeral Island, and thus numerous warriors' corpses had been buried in this place. With the typical circumstances that the sunlight didn't reach this place, the corpse aura always stayed hidden in the ground instead of dispersing. Qingming had chosen the Cold Wind Island to be his temporary shelter, as he had seen this island's special feature. The King Corpse had sneaked into the ground, absorbing the corpse aura here and quietly cultivating. Just after a few days, it had already had significant improvement. Standing in front of Qingming, the kind corpse showed a very sharp and long fang jutting out from the King Corpse's mouth, while its fingers were like 10 sharpened swords of 1 meter. Long nails. A plump corpse aura was like a long earthworm that flew out from those nails and moved constantly, which was inexplicably strange. The King Corpse had white-gray eyes, looked at Shiryan in a daze as it seemed to be waiting for Qingming's order. 2 palace masters of Yin-Yang Wonderland also quietly appeared, one in front, one behind, surrounding Shiryan. The Queen of Sky Fan Xiangyin was wearing purple clothes, her pants tightly attached to her legs and only covered to just above her knees, exposing her 2 white, jade-like feet. The tight pants revealed her fully round butts and her slim waist. Her firm, big breasts were protruding as if they wanted to split out of her clothes, which gave people a fulfilling feeling. With her full, red lips, her beautiful, watery eyes, and her appealing body, she was laughing out loud, looking at Shiryan, who was like a nasty woman indulging in her erotic dreams. The King of Earth was standing behind Shiryan, but he didn't say anything. He suddenly sat down, flapping a white fan in his hand, sometimes spreading the fan and sometimes folding it. The fan had a painting of 100 birds surrounding the phoenix on it. He looked like an old scholar with a profound study. Qingming still wore the green mask with yellow fangs. While his body stayed hidden in a loose black tunic, his green eyes were like poisonous snakes that were looking for opportunities to bite other people. Some warriors of the Corpse's God sect and the Yin-Yang Wonderland quietly came out, besieging Shiryan and coldly watching him. Inhai was one of them. He was holding a silver mourning stick. His face was white-gray like death, while his mouth revealed a cruel smile. It seemed that he wanted to see how Shiryan would die. There were a total of 3 God Realm warriors and more than 10 Nirvana Realm and Sky Realm warriors. As Shiryan saw everyone surrounding him, he shuddered while his face became dull and darkened. It was a trap that was reserved for him. He had somehow understood after seeing Qingming's appearance. When the King Corpse, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth appeared, his heart felt like it was sinking to the bottom of a glass. He knew that it would be pretty hard to leave this place in one piece. Little brother, as you have killed many men, of our 2 forces, you seem to be in good shape. Fan Xiangyin smiled indifferently as her soft body swayed with the wind while her breasts were heaving like an earthquake, and her eyes were glistening. Invisible, mesmerizing consciousness spread out, which was like a magnetic field covering the entire area. The Corpse's God sect's followers and male Yin-Yang Wonderland's disciples surrounding her were like inadequate sexual people being granted stimulating drugs. Their faces and ears were all red, their eyes ignited with a flame of lust, staring at her without a blink, feeling regretful that they couldn't storm forward and give her prominent breasts a bite. Even the king of earth was also affected. A flame of lust burned up in his eyes while he gasped for breath. Shurien's eyes became dazed. Standing in front of Fan Xiangyin, he suddenly felt the scene around was changing. The surrounding mountains turned into a gorgeous palace, and the ground under his feet became a luxurious carpet. The young, heart-stirring woman suddenly appeared beside him. She started opening up the buttons of her clothes. Her belt fell on the ground. Her breath was as fragrant as orchids, while her full red lips slightly shivered. Her round breasts protruded, and her eyes were full of deep affection as she wrapped him up tightly. This fascinating scene could stir everyone's lust. It could turn a person into a wild beast as the evil mind churned and swallowed all of his wisdom. Fan Xiangyun smiled tenderly. Her body swayed while she was performing the sacred martial technique of the yin-yang wonderland, ecstasy's dreamland to its extreme. Her laughter and mesmerizing eyes brought Shurien into a dream from which he would never wake up. For those who were nearby, as long as they were men, all of them would be affected, regardless of whether they were the corpses' god sex followers who made friends with corpses or male disciples of yin-yang wonderland. Even if they were in the sky realm, they would be mesmerized, not knowing who they were, just blankly staring at Fan Xiangyun. Even the king of earth was slightly affected as his mental state was one level lower than Fan Xiangyun. No wonder he always had to ask for her opinion on important decisions in yin-yang wonderland. Qingming was the only person who wasn't being affected. Qingming. His green eyes were still ruthless without any abnormal change. Queen of Sky, don't tell me that you like him. Qingming looked at her for a while and then spoke up with a hoarse voice. Don't waste everyone's time. I will now command the king corpse to exterminate him so that we can avoid unexpected things. Don't. Fan Xiangyun revealed a faint smile as she excitedly winked at Shurien, covered her mouth, and said, As I have said, I want to drain off this little rascal's yang qi until he is dead. Right now, he is in a dream without any sense of autonomy. No matter how I move or touch him, he will not resist and will only obey me. After having finished talking, she laughed out loud, walked over to Shurien, and started taking off his belt. A trace of disgust flashed across Qingming's eyes. He coldly snorted and said, This little kid is only in the nirvana realm, so how much benefit will you get even if you can take all of his yang qi? He cut off one of Ma Qidun's arms. There isn't merely just the power of the nirvana realm in his body. Fan Xiangyun slightly chuckled. Her beautiful eyes became cold, displeasingly glancing at Qingming. If I can completely absorb the qi of this kind of warrior, I will certainly reap great benefits. Qingming, you have to accept this. Don't you want me to live happily? All right, his body is yours, but his other things belong to me. The hierarchy of the corpse's god sect frowned and said, As for the passion of secret treasures, we will talk about it later. Fan Xiangyun revealed a broad smile, but her eyes were even colder than earlier. You can take the heaven flame, but don't dream about that god sword. After saying those words, Fan Xiangyun moved to the side of Shurien, kissed him on his cheek, and then pushed him down on the ground. A dark red circle of light suddenly spread out from her storage ring, covering her and Shurien. It prevented other people from seeing the activities inside. The dream was really magical. No one in this fantasy could differentiate between good and bad. They could just let go of all trauma and show their lingering, primitive affections. In this circle of light, Fan Xiangyun laughed out loud, looking at Shurien. She quietly observed the transformation in his eyes as she gently took off his clothes. When his towering privates were exposed, Fan Xiangyun's smile was even more brilliant. Slowly taking off her clothes, Fan Xiangyun revealed a smile, swayed, and lowered her round butt. Ah! Fan Xiangyun suddenly screamed out loud, her charming face full of panic. She quickly wanted to stand up. The coldness spread out all over her entire body from her lower body, freezing her internal systems. The mysterious chill burst out to every corner and every bone in her body. Shurien's dazed eyes abruptly glinted with a feeling of emotionless and ruthlessness. Without hesitation, he raised his hand, seizing her prominent white breasts as his handprints launched at the same time. Her breasts were deformed and then burst out. Boom! Fan Shangyun's naked body pierced through the circle of light, flying straight out. Her straight legs had been frozen, and her lower body had become ice crystal. Her appealing breasts had bloodily burst open. There was no trace of charm in her beautiful eyes. Only fear remained. Crazily screaming, she covered her breasts as if she wanted to stop them from exploding. However, blood kept flowing out through the slits between her fingers. Trickles of blood dripped on her white body and then ran down her abdomen and instantly formed into ice, which was very peculiar. In the circle of light, Shurien displayed a cold face, grinned, and put all of his strength in storming straight to Fan Shangyun, who was still floating in the sky. He wanted to carry on his annihilation. Chapter 353. An Ambush in Adversity. Chapter 353. An Ambush in Adversity. Two great God Realm warriors, Qing Ming and the King of Earth, who were still waiting for Fan Shangyun to absorb all of Shurien's power, suddenly heard her miserable screams. Instantly, they saw her body fly straight up to the sky while blood splashed everywhere. After that, they saw Shurien grinning like a mighty, bloodthirsty beast and then pierce through the sky like a sharp, pointed sword. He was very ferocious, looking like he had to exterminate Fan Xiangyan at all costs. "Do you want to die?" The King of Earth shouted ear-piercingly. The white fan in his hand suddenly flew out. The painting of 100 birds surrounding a phoenix seemed to be revived. Different kinds of colorful birds leaped out of the fan, singing out loud altogether and crazily speeding to attack Shurien. These birds were not big, but their feathers were beautiful, and their flying speed was as fast as lightning. In just a blink, they had already scratched the void, striking Shurien. Numerous attacking waves like frost, flame, venom, sharp drift abruptly sprayed out from those birds' mouths. Although it was individually not a strong attack, they intertwined together like a spider net, and that was where the extremely powerful attraction force came from. Horrendous power inside Shurien's body from the 3 fierce, living forms flowed out, while the second sky of rampage and negative forces all churned up in his body. At this moment, he burst out his full power to attack. He was determined to kill or seriously injure that partly frozen body at all cost. The life seal was on one of his hands, while the death seal was on the other hand. 2 seals integrated into one, creating the life and death seal that contained vigorous attacking power. However, he suddenly realized that a sky-piercing sucking force was starting up. The power was interwoven together like a quagmire that could entangle all kinds of creatures without the slightest struggle. Blood streamed down the chest of the Queen of Sky, Fan Shangyun. Her breasts had burst open where her sticky flesh and tendons there could now be seen. Her face was dreary, and half of her body was frozen. She was condensing her forces to thaw the frozen part of her body. Shurien rushed toward her from below. Even though he was very close to her, he suddenly stopped and began to sink slowly. The craziness appeared in Fan Xiangyun's beautiful eyes. Her full red lips let out an earth-shaking scream. Her hands on her chest clustered and formed into 2 light balls. One was purple one, and one was green one, both emitting a vast light. Fan Xiangyun had refined the god soul to create 2 small figures inside the 2 light balls. Those small people had the same appearance as her, but their temperament was completely different. It seemed that the person inside the green light ball had an upright and dignified appearance. The 2 hands came together, forming a cross as if one was worshipping some illusory god. The figure in the purple light ball had no clothes, always wore a lustful smile, and continually performed provocative dances. Radiant beams from the 2 light balls burst out. The 2 people in the balls gradually grew. Their eyes were simultaneously looking toward Shiryan. Suddenly, the eyes of the 2 people inside the light balls changed. They exchanged looks before flying out of the light balls like the illusion of ghosts. Their bodies were like smoke, floating out and drifting toward Shiryan. Among those 2 people, one was arrogant righteousness, and the other was lustful evil, which instantly dashed into Shiryan's eyes. Shiryan's head began violently convulsing. He felt like his body was split into 2 illusions, each of which had its own consciousness. One was upright, and the other one was ruthless. Even Shiryan's soul seemed to be divided into 2 and constantly fighting with each other. Everything happened in a split second. As soon as he felt something wrong, he fell onto the quagmire, which had been created by the flock of birds earlier. All kinds of exotic power instantly penetrated his body. The flock of birds continued to glow. Their pointy beaks continually pecked at Shiryan. Shiryan's thigh appeared with several holes of blood. His body couldn't bear the pecks of those birds' pointy beaks. Blood and flesh mixed, and bones could be seen. However, a sharp sound resounded when the birds pecked at his upper body and his 2 arms. Those parts of his body were not affected at all. The King of Earth was motionlessly sitting on the ground, revealing a cold smile while watching the flock of birds peck at Shiryan. Qingming had originally been about to take action. However, when he saw Shiryan being constrained by the soul division technique of Fan Shangyun and the King of Earth, he wasn't in a hurry to assist. He just observed crazy Fan Shangyun. Fan Shangyun's body was suspended in the air. Her blood had been frozen into blood crystals. There was no trace of charm left on her face, leaving only cruelty and bitterness. When she waved her hands, the 2 light balls suddenly burst out and turned into numerous dots of light, flowing into the frozen places on her body and dissolving the ice energy. The illusory Tuk Kot Mongken was broken by her miserable, crazy scream. The surrounding disciples of the 2 sects woke up from the illusion. Everyone surprisingly looked at her, and then at Shiryan's blood-dripping body. These people didn't know what had happened. However, when they saw Fan Shangyun's heart-stirring body miserably dilapidated without any trace of beauty left, they were terrified and shifted their eyes toward Shiryan with a look of fear on their faces. "Don't kill him right now. I want him to bear the extreme humankind tortures. I want to detain his soul and torture it to death." Fan Shangyun clamored crazily. Her 2 pupils shot out the perniciousness, preventing the King of Earth from taking action. Anyone who looked at her in the eyes at this moment would be in a panic. Even the face of the King of Earth was discolored, and he didn't dare to go against her request. The blue and purple dots of light flowed into Fan Shangyun, making her tremble, and the cold air from the ice swirl. She used her power to force the icy power of the ice-cold flame out. God! Realm warriors were God, realm warriors after all. Although she had been neglectfully injured, once she reacted, even the power of the ice-cold flame couldn't do anything. Fan Shangyun, with her disheveled hair and bloody breasts, was like a banshee showing her fangs and claws as she stormed toward Shiryan. At this moment, she was no longer the Queen of Sky who could mesmerize tens of thousands of men. She was now a woman who became crazy because of the humiliation she received. A sign of horror flashed across Shiryan's eyes. 2 strands of consciousness of the 2 people who had been created by Fan Shangyun appeared in Shiryan's sea of consciousness and continuously attacked his host soul. His sea of consciousness churned. Under the influence of those 2 phantoms, the 5 devils in the sea of consciousness crazily came out. However, they didn't stop those 2 phantoms, but stared at Shiryan's host soul instead. All of a sudden, the glabella of his host soul, The place between his eyebrows suddenly jerked as a white eye was cracking his flesh and skin and slowly emerged. In that eye, a group of flames was jumping peculiarly. A flow of air that could kill all creatures and souls came up sharply. At the same time, a bunch of bright silver lights instantly rushed to Fan Xiangyan's 2 strands of consciousness and covered them. Silently, those 2 phantom souls perished and scattered, leaving no sound or trace. Shiyan's formerly surging sea of consciousness regained its normal state. Shiyan awakened. The feeling of being divided in 2 had disappeared. His eyes also restored their consciousness. Right at this moment, Fan Xiangyan, with her disheveled hair, who was showing fangs and claws, abruptly waved her 10 fingertips. A bunch of blue-purple light bloomed, dashing toward Shiyan's neck from a close distance. Shiyan shuddered. Even before he could react, the star martial spirit activated the starlight. A beam of light flashed while his body was instantly shot 1 mile away and reappeared in front of Inhai's cave. Confine. The ability of the star, profound qi yin power, negative powers, and the swirl that gathered the power of the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God simultaneously flowed out altogether, forming a gravitational field, which was like an invisible prison confining Inhai. Inhai's face changed. When he was about to take action with his full power, he suddenly felt his body being controlled. Some unknown force had detained him. His strength became turbid, and there was no way to calm it down. Without the strength to protect himself, Inhai's body was cut into pieces by the gravitational field. Each piece of flesh, one by one, quickly detached from his body. The gravitational field was a typical secret technique. The more types of power poured in, the greater power it had. Right now, there were 7 kinds of power inside Shiyan's body. When they blended, even a Sky Realm warrior like Inhai wasn't able to bear them, and his body strength was totally restrained. Shiyan knew that if it continued like this, the gravitational field would cut off Inhai's body until he was dead. He couldn't wait any longer. Shiyan threw himself into the gravitational field and launched a blow striking Inhai's head. After that, he flew in the cave where the 2 Yin wooden coffins were placed. His 2 hands had soon condensed the life seals. 7 life seals flew out, merged into one, and then divided into 2 flows falling into the 2 respective coffins. Aololo wailing. The 2 sky corpses, which were confined inside the Yin wooden coffins by a secret technique, suddenly held up. The Yin wooden coffins were broken. The 2 sky corpses got out and appeared in front of Shiyan. Shiyan was overjoyed. In adversity, he burst into laughter, not able to hide his cheerfulness. Chapter 354, Frenzy. Chapter 354, Frenzy. That year, at burial plot number 93, Shiyan printed the life seal on these 2 sky corpses, causing them to mutate. It was like opening their spiritual consciousness, which created a miraculous contact between him and the 2 corpses. After that, he had to think for a long time to understand the magical effect of the life seal, as well as the reason why he could have such relationships with the 2 sky corpses. The reason was due to the life seal. Seeing these 2 sky corpses again after many years, he used the life seal once again. However, this time was much different from before because now the life seal had been fused from the power of the 3 great living forms and his profound qi, making the connection between him and the 2 sky corpses stronger. The 2 sky corpses were standing in front of him. Their bleary eyes gradually displayed intimacy, looking at him with astonishment like they were waiting for something. The feeling was fantastic. As Shiyan had a feeling that he could freely command these 2 sky corpses, he tried to release a flow of spiritual consciousness and stretched his hand, pointing to the herd of Yin-Yang Wonderland's disciples who were standing opposite him. Expectedly, the 2 sky corpses were like 2 ferocious beasts immediately flying up, rushing straight to the Yin-Yang Wonderland's disciples. The dead aura massively rolled out with amazing momentum. Shiryan was overjoyed. When he flew into the gravitational field, the strangling force of this field pulled him into a quiet place where Inhai's body was still floating around. He then absorbed Inhai's aura entirely, but because of the gravitational field's existence, Inhai's body remained floating around behind him. Although the gravitational field existed, it was invisible to the naked eye. Thus, in the eyes of Yin Yang Wonderland's disciples, Inhai's floating body looked extremely strange, giving those who were watching it a bone-chilling feeling. Still staying in the gravitational field, Shiryan flew to the opposite mountain. He took advantage of the swirl in his body once again. As he could feel the surging power pouring into his body, he calmed his mind and passed his consciousness into the blood vein ring. Come out. The strength of Shiryan's body burst out with monstrous momentum. He suddenly roared. He wanted to use the insight he had gathered during that time to summon the mysterious giant sword. To do that, he needed to have enough powerful forces. Sure indeed, when his strength had reached a certain level, and his body tendons began to feel pain, the mysterious giant sword finally flew out of the blood vein ring. With one hand clutching the sword, a violent sucking force instantly absorbed the power of his body as strange eyes opened on the sword. Whenever there was an eye opened, more evil aura was added to the sword. It was like an ancient troll who had been dormant for 1 billion years, climbing out of that crazily sucking gravitational field. While Shiryan was holding the mysterious giant sword, his host's soul trembled, and his sea of consciousness was as bright as a mirror, irradiating even the smallest commotions of the energy fluctuations around his body. Each ray of soul consciousness inside the sea of consciousness was like a mirror. Without releasing the soul consciousness, he could still feel the energy fluctuations of the warriors standing around him. The moving trajectory of the energy inside the surrounding warriors became very clear. No matter what kind of martial technique it was, as long as they released their forces, he could recognize them immediately. Shiryan's eyes were as bright as a shooting star, splendid and lively. In his eyes, the world now was different from before. The gossamer of the sky and earth corpse aura from underneath the surrounding mountains, including the aura of vegetation and a variety of energy in the world, seemed to be revived. Even naked eyes could see it. It was marvelous. Holding the giant sword and seeing through the sword's opened eyes, he could view the true nature of things, which was like the moonlight exposing itself again after the fog had dissipated. At the same time, a stream of evil aura, along with the sword, infiltrated his sea of consciousness and fused with his host's soul. A desire to destroy all creatures arose from deep inside his consciousness. It was uncontrollable and irremovable. If all the people here were not dead, Shiryan would never be able to stop this desire. His red eyes were full of bloodthirsty craziness. Under the urge of the evil desire, Shiryan couldn't help but hold his face up, roaring like a demon from hell who liked to show off its ruthlessness. Qingming's face suddenly changed. Fan Xiangyin was stunned. She then hastily cast all kinds of spiritual illusions to agitate Shiryan's mind, pushing him into a fantasy. However, hallucinating secret technique of Yin Yang Wonderland instantly lost their effects as soon as they met Shiryan's eyes. His eyes smashed down any kind of fantasy. Fan Xiangyin was aghast. She was born with the soul martial spirit, which not only helped her easily grasp all sorts of charm martial techniques of Yin Yang Wonderland, but also enhanced her power several times. Over many years, the combination of the strange mind, martial spirit, and the enchanting secret technique of Yin Yang Wonderland had affected numerous warriors, who then had to kneel down in front of her. Nevertheless, a Nirvana realm warrior like Shiryan had unexpectedly broken her enchantment. When he held the mysterious giant sword in his hand, his soul seemed to be thoroughly immune and was no longer affected by the attacks of others. This major change frightened Fan Xiangyin very much. Her innate martial spirit had lost its efficacy. It was no different from a blow that seriously injured her, so it took all of her courage to rush forward and start a fight with Shiryan. The King of Earth was aghast as he quickly stood up. When the hand holding the white fan flipped, a whirlwind instantly appeared. Birds flew around, and a splendid golden sword emerged in his palm. The 100-meter-long golden sword's light burst out and turned into a long Dragon King. Many birds flew out from there, penetrating the Dragon King's body. The energy of those birds gathered all in one place. The Dragon King twisted and turned, with scales on its body discharging many colorful lights. The Dragon King flew toward Shiryan with an imposing, arrogant appearance. At the same time, Qingming screamed out, giving a command to the king corpse. The 3-meter-tall king corpse held its face up, releasing earth-shaking roars. Even the originally dead mountains trembled from its roars. Among the howls, the king corpse leaped up while his mouth spurted out groups of 5 elements twilight. 5 huge light columns condensed in the void, turning into the 5 elements twilight, which could bind all creatures. This 5 elements twilight started to wrap around Shiryan's legs. As soon as the Dragon King and the 5 elements twilight appeared, the deserted island instantly had big change. Dark clouds, which had existed there all the time, were pressed down, making it look like the sky was about to collapse. Shiryan held the giant sword in his hand, raised his head up to glance at dark clouds above his head, and realized there were countless insects' corpses, which often appeared on dead bodies, which were wiggling and absorbing the corpse aura rising from underneath. Those insects' corpses were controlled by the king corpse, tearing and swallowing each other to become even bigger. Each new insect's corpse had a volume 10 times bigger than before, and their power also skyrocketed. Millions of insects' corpses wriggled, devoured each other, and then formed into tens of thousands of fat insects' corpses like snow-white maggots. There was still sticky snow-white liquid on their bodies, which looked extremely nauseating. Staying inside the gravitational field, Shiryan stood still, sensing all kinds of energy which were bursting out and impetuously pouring into the giant sword. When 1/3 of the eyes on the sword had opened, it stopped absorbing the power from his body. Right at this time, Shiryan swung the sword, slashing that 100-meter-long Dragon King's head. Crack, crack, crack. When the giant sword was swung up, the void began to break apart. It was like an extremely evil eye that brought along exotic, wicked forces that were infiltrating the sword. The mysterious secret giant sword suddenly emitted bloody red light, turning the sky above the deserted island into a sea of blood. 1/3 of the number of the opened eyes had also turned a pink hue. With the giant sword as the center, a flow of evil, destructive aura turned into a bunch of sticky bloodlight splashing and spreading out all directions. That flow of bloodlight was as if it had its own life, flying to the exact caves that have the disciples of the corpse's god sect and the yin-yang wonderland inside. When the bloodlight entered the body, the disciples of the 2 sects screamed out miserably as their bodies quickly dissolved and turned into a puddle of blood. Nirvana realm warriors could resist for a short while but had to bear the extreme pain. They helplessly looked at the bloodlight that was gradually eroding their bodies and then turned them into a puddle of blood in the end. Sky realm warriors had faster reactions than the others. As soon as they saw the bloodlight coming, they hurriedly turned around and ran away, escaping from the fatal blow. If a warrior got hit by the bloodlight, he would definitely become a puddle of blood sooner or later. Their aura didn't dissolve, but was absorbed by Shiryan's mystery martial spirit. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Shiryan suddenly held his face up to the sky and laughed out loud. His laughter was extremely wild and fierce. He felt the spiritual aura infiltrating his body. He slightly swung the mysterious giant sword as a flow of sharp bloodlight shot out and instantly slashed the Dragon King into half. Dozens of birds flew out from the Dragon King, but the evil forces of the bloodlight spread and quickly cut them into pieces. Thus, the strand of God consciousness from the King of Earth was erased. The birds finally disappeared like a puff of smoke. Shiryan swung his sword once again. The brutal sword pierced through the sky as if it wanted to cut a deep, bottomless abyss. The insects' corpses hiding in the dark clouds were swallowed by the abyss in the sky even before they could use their forces. They then permanently disappeared into that chaotic space. This is my power. I'm so comfortable and so happy. Crazily laughing out loud, Shiryan was holding the mysterious sword in his hand, slightly swaying his head with satisfaction. He was getting crazier and crazier. The three-god realm Qingming, the King of Earth, and the Queen of Sky were bewilderedly watching Shiryan while they had a bone-chilling feeling in their hearts. Chapter 355, I Give You Freedom. Chapter 355, I Give You Freedom. Above the deserted island, Shiryan was crazily laughing. The mysterious god sword in his hand swung up, and the sharp blood light quickly hacked down on the opposite mountain. The blood light minced the mountain as if it smashed a piece of tofu, splitting it into two halves. The mountain collapsed shortly after. Holding the mysterious giant sword in his hand, Shiryan felt a wonderful pleasure as if he was grasping the whole world. His forces spread out, and the scene appeared clearly in his soul consciousness. He couldn't suppress the desire of destroying all creatures, regretting not being able to kill everything with just one slash. It was an indescribable joy. From a distance, two Sky Realm warriors had been lucky enough not to be killed under Shiryan's sword. They were wearing panicked looks on their faces and didn't have the courage to take actions anymore, not daring to come closer as they felt extremely insecure. In these Sky Realm warriors' eyes, Shiryan now was like an undefeatable demon god. Only avoiding him could save their lives. Even the three-god realm warriors Qingming, the King of Earth, and the Queen of Sky felt frightened, silently watching Shiryan laughing out loud, not knowing what they should do. Only the 10,000-year king corpse of the Corpses God sect was not scared of Shiryan's impetuous momentum, quickly rushing toward him. In the dazzling 5 elements halo, condensed by the 5 elements forces of the world with blazing light and surging power, the king corpse instantly appeared in front of Shiryan. Ha ha ha. Shiryan grinned while raising the mysterious giant sword. The thick blood light spread out in all directions, which was not different from the fresh blood that flowed out from the sword. The eyes on the sword were glowing scarlet, shooting out ferocious looks, while the pupils were rolling as if they were waiting for him to launch an attack. The sword aura tore the sky apart, creating a big hole. Numerous strange lights shot out from that hole like shooting stars, zoomed straight for the corpse insects, drew them in, and then they soon disappeared into the huge space hole, no longer existing in this world. Ow, wailing. The king corpse raised its head up, roaring. Following the roar, the 5 elements force massively gathered, then fused with layers upon layers of dead aura, and poured into the 5 elements halo. After having received more power, the 5 elements halo, which looked like a huge, multicolored cloud, became vigorous and suddenly stormed toward Shiryan. The king corpse turned around, passed into the 5 elements halo, and then strangely disappeared. Shiryan sneered. His face was as cold as ice. When the sword swung up, evil bloodlights burst out from the eyes on the sword and hacked straight to the 5 elements halo. Wherever the bloodlights passed through, the 5-element halo was swiftly split into pieces, which was as simple as tearing a rag apart. The faces of the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth changed dramatically. A trace of panic flashed across their eyes. Qingming's eyes glinted with a green light, and green flames shot out from his pupils. Looking at the 5 elements halo, he raised his hands with gloves forming a cross sign and then launched a strange hand seal. Strands of consciousness suddenly flowed out from Qingming's mind like streams and instantly infiltrated the 5 elements halo. After having received Qingming's consciousness, the 5 elements halo, which had originally been split into pieces earlier, slowly condensed with a speed that was visible to the naked eye. On that five elements halo, the king corpse's ferocious body suddenly flashed up like an electric light. As soon as it appeared, the pair of eyes, which didn't have human emotions, glimmered with a flickering green flame. At this moment, through the corpse flame, the king corpse formed a delicate connection with Qingming, as if Qingming's spirit had been consigned to it. The king corpse's pupils turned green. His eyes suddenly became strange. The hair on its 3-meter-tall body, which looked like an ape, began to quiver even without the wind. Each strand of hair contained tremendous aura. The king corpse's body suddenly trembled as its hair fell, as hard as steel needles, shooting straight at Shurian like a shower. The attacking range covered the entire space around him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Innumerable hairs from the king corpse blanketed the sky and then crashed into Shurian's body before Shurian could react. Bang, bang, bang. Hair that hit on his upper body was like hitting steel, producing sonorous sounds. None of them could injure him. However, as his lower body hadn't been mutated yet, the king corpse's hair could quickly pierce through it. Shurian's 2 legs, which already looked ugly as they had been pecked by the flock of birds of the king of Earth earlier, now had been drilled by those strands of hair, and thus looked terrible. Although the bones had not been damaged yet, blood and flesh had already been blended up. Following the king corpse's hairs, millions of flows of corpse aura spread out and destroyed Shurian's legs. After the corpse aura had penetrated his body, it quickly ran along the tendons and rushed into his waist. Shurian slightly shuddered, hastily urging the swirl on his abdomen along with gathering the fire power of the earth flame at the same time. After that, he pushed that power toward his legs and struggled with the corpse aura, preventing it from invading his body. Ow, ow, ow. After the first blow had been launched successfully, the king corpse continued roaring and dashing forward. When he used his innate secret art of cadaver, countless corpse aura was condensed inside its claws, making them 10 meters longer. Its claws flashed up and snatched at Shurian. Surging corpse aura filled the entire sky and massively rolled toward Shurian. This blow of the king corpse was extremely sharp and contained the resentment of millions of creatures in the world. This evil blow also influenced Shurian's soul. Shurian tried to press down the pain on his legs. The star shield was launched. Countless starlight flashed up and wrapped around his body, giving it full protection. He then glided over and attempted to release one slash. Cling, cling. The king corpse's devil-sharp claw was cut off. Although its nails were also broken, they were still very stinging, looking like 10 sharp swords full of horrendous momentum dashing toward Shurian. Puff, puff, puff. The sharp, long nails pierced the star shield, shaking numerous star dots, causing them to burst out altogether. The king corpse's nails exploded together with the star shield and gradually dissipated. However, there were still 10 half-a-meter-long fragmented nails left stabbing Shurian's chest with undiminished speed. Tsui. 10 pointed sharp nails like 10 small swords struck his mutant body, piercing 3 centimeters into his body. It was only 3 centimeters. 10 sharp nails strangely shook all of a sudden. The strength of those nails constantly penetrated Shurian's chest, but was intercepted by a mysterious barrier. The king corpse's claws could raise the mountain and destroy the earth. It could be described as one of the strongest attacks of the king corpse, or could be compared to the full power spirit leveled sharp sword. It was even difficult for a god realm warrior with a full defense to resist it. If the warriors were not cautious, this blow could pierce them to death. Qingming also believed that Shurian would certainly be dead under this blow. He had witnessed many powerful warriors being pierced through just by one claw of the king corpse. There was no exception. However, the result this time gave him an inexplicable horror. It was only 3 centimeters. No matter how hard those 10 nails had tried or had gathered plenty of corpse aura around, They couldn't move forward any further, not even 1 centimeter. Qingming was aghast. Shiyan's face also changed. He suddenly felt a strange power in his countless muscle fibers, releasing a violent counterattack that not only prevented the attack of those 10 nails, but also defiantly resisted the opponents. Billions of muscle fibers interweaved into numerous hands and slowly pushed the king corpse's claws out of Shiryan's body. Wailing. The king corpse roared and held crazily. It barged forward one more time. The broken nails grew again and reached 10 meters in just a blink. It was bizarre. Shiryan's eyes slightly changed, and he suddenly revealed a strange smile. One of his hands pushed forward, and the crazy power of his body instantly churned up, fusing with the ice-cold flame, the Holy Spirit God, the earth flame, and the profound chi of his body, which condensed into a huge handprint like an enormous mountain crashing toward the king corpse. When the king corpse rushed toward Shiryan and was only about 5 meters away from him, the king corpse was suddenly grasped by a life seal as big as a mountain. The king corpse's 3-meter-tall body was tied up tightly, and a vibrant living aura infiltrated his body. The king corpse was originally ferocious, but now became stagnant and motionless. Its pupils turned bleary and blankly stared at Shiryan. At the same time, a subtle connection between Shiryan and the king corpse appeared. Kill, kill, kill. An evil intent came up from the king corpse's mind and instantly went into Shiryan's sea of consciousness. Shiryan's eyes flashed up as he quickly moved that ferocious aura to his host's soul. Without waiting for the king corpse's response, Shiryan connected the king corpse with the host's soul in the sea of consciousness to open the third eye at his glabella. A bunch of silver light shot out from the third eye, zoomed across the space, and directly fell into the king corpse's brain. That silver light instantly found the soul-controlling techniques seed, which Qingming had placed inside the king corpse's brain. The silver force, which belonged to the 9 serenities' soul-devouring flame, shone exactly on the soul-controlling seed. It was not different from the method that Shiryan had applied on Fan Shangyun's consciousness, which was shining the dazzling light at it and burning it to ashes. The force that had imprisoned the king corpse disappeared into thin air. The murderous intent inside the king corpse's head, which was formerly inflamed, now gradually calmed down. After having been under the soul-controlling technique's confinement over tens of thousands of years, the king corpse finally took back its initiatives and restored its spiritual knowledge. Who are you? A strand of consciousness followed the king corpse's soul, coming into Shiryan's sea of consciousness. Don't ask who I am. I am not your enemy. Shiryan was overjoyed as he hurriedly forged iron when it was still hot. I have removed the soul-controlling technique which had existed tens of thousands of years inside your brain. I give you freedom. From now on, you can choose your own life. No one will enslave you anymore. Freedom, freedom! The king corpse's spirit churned up. Some kind of force burned up in its bleary eyes and wiped the green fire out of its body. Tui! Hierarchy of the corpses, God, sect Qingming, suddenly spurted out a mouthful of blood while his eyes showed his fear. He blankly looked at Shiryan and then shifted his eyes to the king corpse that was gradually coming to his senses. He hysterically screamed out, "No, it's impossible. Absolutely impossible." Chapter 356. Looking Forward to Your Growth. Chapter 356. Looking Forward to Your Growth. Qingming had never been this panicked before. King Corpse was the fundamental foundation of the Corpse God sect, and thus the King Corpse's mightiness was related to the Corpse's God sect. Thanks to its existence, Qingming could be one of the dominators in the Endless Sea. It could be said that without King Corpse, Qingming would not have had his status today. Regardless of whether it was now or in the future, King Corpse was the assurance of his strength. Without King Corpse, he would lose his current status, and his position in the Corpse's God sect might be under siege as well. The cultivation of the corpse's god-sex secret techniques had some relations with King Corpse as well. Once King Corpse was out of his control, it would be difficult for him to break through the next realms, and he could never make any further step for the rest of his life. The King Corpse's abnormal change was tens of thousands of times harder to accept than Shurian killing him by a sword. Having seen King Corpse gradually restore his consciousness, Qingming was totally panicked. He was truly terrified. He had lost everything. "You are free." In the middle of the void, Shurian held the mysterious giant sword and transmitted his consciousness continuously, waking up the King Corpse's spiritual mind that had been bound for tens of thousands of years. His efforts soon received an effect. King Corpse no longer took actions toward Shurian, and the murderous intent in the King Corpse's soul also disappeared. It was blankly standing in the void while its soul seemed to gradually regain vague memories, as if it just remembered something extremely important. Qingming was roaring non-stop beneath, but he had no way to influence the King Corpse anymore. The King Corpse's originally empty eyes slowly regained human emotions, looking like it was sinking deep in thought and searching for something. Shurian didn't say a word, nor took the opportunity to take action. He was vigilant while continuing to send his friendly intents to it. That year, he had used his consciousness to contact the 10,000-year Earth Flame. Right now, he was using the same way to build a good relationship with the King Corpse. It was unknown whether it was Shurian's persistence or his friendly consciousness that had an effect on the King Corpse, who had formerly been stunned and was suddenly ignited with killing intent. However, its target now was not Shurian but Qingming. The 5 elements halo under Shurian's feet churned up, looking like a big light net dashing to cover Qingming. The Queen of Sky and the King of Earth were aghast and subconsciously ran far away, but were still afraid of becoming the King Corpse's target. As they were warriors of the Tuda Sea, they clearly knew how terrifying the King Corpse was. In recent years, Qingming had taken advantage of the King Corpse to kill many high-class warriors. Being able to use the 5 elements force, as well as being invulnerable to sabers or spears, King Corpse could be immune to any kinds of attack. It could control the corpse aura and turn it into a steady stream of power. On this island, once King Corpse started the slaughter, even Fan Xiangyan was frightened. A trace of despair flashed in Qingming's eyes. The King Corpse relentlessly attacked him like a sword, smashing down his last hope, making him realize that from now on, King Corpse would no longer be under his control. He understood the King Corpse's mightiness better than anyone else. As soon as the King Corpse took action, Qingming desperately stared at Shurian with pernicious eyes and roared angrily, "Shurian, I will kill you sooner or later. I want you to taste the fiercest torture in the world." While releasing an ear-splitting scream, a green flame burned up in Qingming's eyes, forming a strange fire. Inside that flame, numerous creeping corpse shadows launched strong evil forces. Qingming's inky black tunic gathered the corpse aura around him, forming a bunch of sharpened streams of light that quickly zoomed toward the west and instantly disappeared into the horizon. When the King Corpse descended from the sky, bringing along the 5 elements halo, Qingming had already vanished, leaving no trace. The Queen of Sky and the King of Earth exchanged looks, and they both chose to retreat. Their bodies simultaneously emitted dazzling lights that distorted the space around and then disappeared into thin air. God Realm warriors had the ability to transport tens of thousands of miles in just a blink. By either using secret treasures or bursting their body strength, they could not only move thousands of miles, but also hide their auras and souls. Except for someone who had the ability to detect the souls or cast their supernatural powers to catch up, it was challenging to find them again. To pull up the roots, one should have supernatural strength as well as a higher cultivation base than that of the opponents to identify their souls. Shurian obviously didn't have that kind of ability. That was why he could only helplessly watch the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth disappear. Right after Qingming Fan Xiangyin, and the King of Earth left, Shiryan was about to take action against the other warriors around, but then realized that they had left or hidden themselves a long time ago. Some of them used secret treasures, some used secret techniques, and others burst their body strength to flee away. Shiryan's face darkened. He only had Nirvana Realm cultivation base, and thus couldn't detect the opponent's souls. If he had Sky Realm cultivation base and used the advantage of his host soul, it would allow him to find 1 or 2 Sky Realm warriors. And if he had God Realm cultivation base, he could surely pursue and find the souls of Qingming, Fan Xiangyin, and the King of Earth. Unfortunately, his realm now was just the second sky of Nirvana Realm. After all the warriors had completely disappeared, there was only a flock of corpse slaves, 2 sky corpses, and himself. After destroying the gravitational field, Shiryan stood in silence, surrounded by dead mountains while continually absorbing the sky and earth aura around him. He had killed around 10 warriors at the Nirvana Realm or lower using the mysterious giant sword. Their auras all rolled into his body. These auras were very precious to him as they could help him complete his mutation process. Thus, he would not let them slip away. When the king corpse had contact with him, it transmitted an amount of corpse aura which wrapped around Shiryan's legs. Now, it started retrieving that aura, revealing Shiryan's stickily bloody legs. However, under the immortal martial spirit's effect, his wounds began to recover. During the process of developing and reconnecting muscles and tendons, he had to endure a great pain. However, thanks to the immortal martial spirit's effect, the wounds healed very quickly. The immortal martial spirit was really worthy of the sacred martial spirit. The more severe the wound was, the faster the healing speed would be. If one got a minor wound in battle, it could be healed immediately. Standing in the void and sensing the healing process of the immortal martial spirit, Shiryan sneered, feeling relaxed. Right at this moment, the mysterious giant's sword suddenly slipped away from his hand, turned into a flow of bloodlight, and then drilled into the blood vein ring, staying there silently motionless. When the giant's sword was gone, Shiryan felt extremely fatigued. Even lifting his arms or legs was very hard and heavy to him. That was the after effect of the second sky of Rampage, as he could feel an impetuous aura pouring into his body, as well as the great pain when his meridians were being torn apart. His face immediately became discolored. The number of warriors who had died in his hands was quite big. Moreover, their realms were quite profound. Thus, the auras exuded after they died were far beyond Shiryan's endurance. They penetrated into his meridians, bringing along numerous negative emotions of fear, despair, and resentment that gradually affected his mind. Using his experiences, as soon as Shiryan felt he was about to be unable to bear it anymore, he immediately left and found a way to give vent. From below, the king corpse was standing together with the 2 sky corpses, 1 male and 1 female, staring at Shiryan, seeming to say something. Shiryan frowned. Even though he had the ability to connect with them, he still had a feeling of insecurity. He wasn't sure when he would lose his consciousness or burst out while those 3 sky corpses were not truly obedient yet. He also wasn't certain whether they would do anything to him when he lost his mind. These 3 sky corpses were intimidating as they already had their own intelligence. With the passage of time, the wisdom of the king corpse would increase. Shiryan understood that once the king corpse recovered its spiritual wisdom, very few people in the endless sea could control it. Even Qingming, who had been studying corpse controlling technique for many years, had run away. So, who else dared to confront it? Perhaps only he could. However, his situation was very special as he could lose his mind or give vent at any time. He needed time to release the harshness inside his body. In the meantime, if the 3 corpses were on his side, he didn't know what would happen. He didn't dare to take risks. Therefore, after weighing his odds, he immediately made a decision. You are free. From now on, you can choose your own path of evolution. I liberate you and don't want to bind you as your former master did. Thus, you don't need to follow me. It is the best for your evolution. Take care. I hope you will become the world's top new species. I hope we will see each other again. If you can speak by that time, we can be partners and friends." After having sent out his consciousness to the 3 sky corpses, Shiryen didn't wait for them to reply, but instantly started the starlight, turning into a beam of light flying away. The 3 corpses looked at the sky, a trace of reluctance flashing up in their eyes. They seemed to want to catch up, but they didn't move. Chapter 357 Fame of Brutality. Chapter 357 Fame of Brutality. King Corpse and the 2 sky corpses raised their heads looking at the sky, standing motionlessly. After a while, the sky corpses' eyes glinted with a strange light as if they had been enlightened about something. The king corpse suddenly leaped up, quickly moving around the wooden coffins in the mountain caves, seeming to remove the corpse-controlling technique to help the corpse slaves inside awaken. Not long after, the wooden coffins, one by one, followed the king corpse's instruction to fly west. The other 2 sky corpses seemed to have reached a delicate connection with the king corpse, keeping up with the others. When they arrived at the west side of the wind island, they saw the king corpse sitting on a wooden coffin, floating on the sea. The 2 sky corpses flew over to their wooden coffins. The lids of the 2 coffins suddenly opened, and the 2 corpses got in and lied down. When they got in their wooden coffins, the king corpse's body also shrank and lied down in his coffin. More than 10 coffins were floating on the sea, quietly moving forward to the west at full speed. Their direction was headed toward the headquarters of the corpses' god sect. On their way, any warrior who saw this strange scene fled. A row of coffins not under control of the corpses' god sect was floating on the sea, which gave those warriors a chilling feeling as they didn't know what happened that these corpses could become this weird. The Gu family on the Thousand Swords Peak. At this moment, the Thousand Swords Peak had become the base where forces in the Hengluo Sea gathered to deal with demon dwellers. Gu Shao Yuqin and the master of the Dongfang family, Fengju, also assembled here. Even Chao Zhilan and Mangu brought their fellows here. In recent days, with the Thousand Swords Peak as the center, all top-class warriors from big forces of different seas gathered and discussed the detailed plan to deal with demon dwellers altogether. The sea in front of the Thousand Swords Peak naturally became the vehement fighting area between demon dwellers and warriors. Both sides put their great forces into this area. Half a month had passed, and many high-class warriors and demon dwellers had died in battle. Presently, the group of Gu Shao, Yuqin, and Dongfangju were happy due to some small victories of recent wars. In the past few days, the master of the Chao family, Chao Qiudao, with the palace head master Yang Yitian, had responded. Their forces had started departing from the Tuda and Sky Seas, approaching Hengluo Sea. That news elated everyone. The group of Gu Shao and Yuqin clearly knew the mightiness of Chao Qiudao and Yang Yitian, and that their appearance would give the situation an earth-shaking change. The demon dwellers' massacre of warriors in the Hengluo Sea seemed to have aroused the anger of the 2 of them to the point that they had decided to unite and deal with the demon dwellers, although they hadn't been in contact with each other for decades. It was unknown whether the demon dwellers had also received the news, because their attacks had slowed down in recent days as if they were waiting for something. The wind blew strongly, and rain fell heavily as a big storm was on the horizon. The Hengluo Sea was like a huge feast of strength, a place where high-class warriors from different seas gathered. Everyone's face was excited as if they saw the dawn of victory. They started to discuss what would be the next step in attacking the opponent. While everyone was delighted, Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth all wore dark eyes as if they had just had a dead child. Qingming, is that little rascal Shiryan dead? Gu Shao was sitting neatly on a god's sword, revealing a rare smile. You guys had previously sent a message saying that you could kill Shiryan. With the unity of the 3 of you, together with the Queen of Sky's illusory soul, it should have been very easy to obliterate him. Yu Qin and Dong Fangju also looked toward the other three, instantly feeling shocked and surprised when seeing their eyes. Chao Zhilan was sitting at the Chao's seat, and Chu Yanqing was standing behind Yu Qin. They both immediately shifted their attentive eyes toward those three when they heard Gu Shao's question. After arriving here, Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth all kept silent with dark eyes as they found a place to sit down. Under the others' attentive looks, they simultaneously sighed. Everyone was stunned. Their expression became eccentric. As they felt something strange, they paid even more attention to the other three. Qingming, you guys couldn't kill him? Gu Shao was startled, not believing that was true, then asked with surprise, even though his strength can be equivalent to that of a god realm with the help of external forces in a short time, that little rascal surely cannot escape from the unity of the three of you. I know that Qingming's king corpse has also been on the Yinwing Island, and we all know how intimidating it is. The king corpse alone is enough to kill that kid. Is there something else that happened unexpectedly? As soon as Gu Shao mentioned the king corpse, Fan Xiangyin and the King of Earth instantly shuddered with their extremely odd faces, as if a sword had stabbed them. Qingming's eyes were flooded with resentment, like someone touching his wound. He suddenly stood up, looking toward Gu Shao. Gu Shao was astonished. He felt awkward, as he didn't know what to say for now. How was it? The king corpse has gotten out of Qingming's control. The King of Earth shook his head, revealing a smile, and then reluctantly said, Only ghosts know what happened in the end. That little rascal launched a strike on the king corpse, and it immediately turned and tried to kill Qingming, and forced us to run away. Run away. The surrounding warriors, who were thrilled, suddenly became dazed when they heard the absurd story. Chao Zhilan shuddered, secretly gritting her teeth. Her beautiful eyes were flooded with fear and incredibility. Chu Yanqing was also stunned as he looked bewilderedly at the weird faces of the three people of Qingming's group. She was frozen for a while and didn't know what had happened. After that, many warriors noisily screamed out myth, as they felt that the three people of Qingming's group had lost their minds and talked nonsense. Ah, Queen of Sky, what happened to your body? Yu Qin of the Heaven Lake Divine Land discovered the abnormal things, surprisingly asked, what happened? Fan Xiangyin was still wearing a green skirt. Her big firm breasts, which made other women envious with admiration, had been deflated. It wasn't just a normal deflation. It became totally flat. What had happened? How come the Queen of Sky's enormous bosom that made men crazy and women jealous has completely disappeared? In the palace, after having heard Yu Qin say this, a majority of warriors all looked toward Fan Xiangyin with eccentric faces as if they had discovered a new continent, secretly exclaiming and continuously guessing. Fan Xiangyin's enchanting face suddenly became livid, as if she had just been poisoned, becoming contorted, terribly changing without any trace of the charm that she used to have. The instant change made other people freeze. Any warrior who looked at her breasts felt stinging in their eyes. Some warriors with low cultivation base had to hold their heads to keep them from rolling on the ground. Queen of Sky, what are you doing? Dong Fangju's face changed color. His question was like thousands of beasts roaring, breaking the illusion in the palace. As he saw the group of warriors behind spurting out mouthfuls of blood, the Dongfang family's people all stood up, shouting out loud. Fan Xianyan's face was distorted. She clenched her teeth, bowed her head, gasping for breath, seeming to try to restrain her extreme rage. Let it go, let it go. Don't fight with each other. As Yu Qin felt that the situation was intense, she rushed out and made peace. She then looked toward the three people of the King of Earth's group and calmly asked, What happened after all? The King of Earth constantly shook his head with an odd face. He looked at Fan Xiangyin, who was about to carry on a massacre, and then threw a glance at Qingming, who wanted to use his heaven flame. He sighed, shook his head and said, "That was the consequence from the deed of that rascal, Shurian." Shurian. Everyone lowered their voices, murmuring his name, while their faces were overwhelmed with fear and surging waves burst out inside their heart. How could it be? Just using the external forces to have the strength which could reluctantly be comparable to that of God realm warriors. What did he rely on to make those famous master warriors not only not succeed in killing him, but also fall into such a desolate end? Was it the truth? Warriors inside the palace suddenly quieted down as if there was an invisible, soundproof wall enclosing everyone. Even the sound of a falling needle could not be heard. This thing, can you tell us more details? Gu Shao hesitated a little bit, carefully choosing every word to avoid irritating Qing Ming and Fan Xiangyan. We don't know what tricks that little rascal used. If it keeps going like this, I am afraid that we will not be able to kill him next time either. The King of Earth looked at Qing Ming and the Queen of Earth. Seeing their uncomfortable faces, he revealed a wry smile and said, "That kid's tricks were very strange. His sword is even more devilish. There's nothing he could not break, as it smashed down all obstacles we came at it with. The most frightening thing is that we don't know what method he used to help the King Corpse escape our mind control. It was partially because the rebellion of the Sky Corpses that the mind, martial spirit of the Queen of Sky lost its effect, and we eventually had to flee. Sigh, it was such a terrible thing to remember. If you guys encounter that little rascal, you must be very careful. You cannot just use your common sense to deal with him." Those warriors' faces immediately changed when they listened to his last sentence. "If we do not eradicate this rascal, we will not live in peace even if you can expel the demon dwellers." After contemplating, Fan Xiangyan gritted her teeth and resentfully said. Qing Ming agreed with a nod, coldly saying, "We can delay the fight with the demon dwellers for now. We need to obliterate this rascal. We can't let him continue living. If he leaves the endless sea and escapes our pursuit, he will return and massacre all of us. No one can stop him, even Chao Chiodao and Yang Yitian. Right now, he is even more terrible than the Yang Tian Emperor." "I agree," Fan Xiangyun said with resentment. "I agree too," said the King of Earth. Everyone was all stunned like wood. A long time after that, Gu Shao looked at Yu Qin and Dong Fengju and realized a trace of fear deep inside their eyes. They were obviously beginning to be scared. Chapter 358. Blessing and Peril Linked Together. Chapter 358. Blessing and Peril Linked Together. On the Wind Cloud Archipelago. It was an island situated in the chaotic area between the Hengluo Sea and the Blackwater Sea, which now became the gathering place for ordinary people of the Hengluo Sea. Under the arrangement of the Three Gods sect, Gu family and Dongfang family, they had been migrated here. The sky and earth auras on this island were a little diluted and suitable for warriors to cultivate. Meanwhile, the Hengluo Sea was recently engaged in battles frequently. As the demon dwellers kept hunting and killing ordinary mortals, those three big forces united and gathered their people to move here. This place was packed and boisterous, and obviously not lacking pleasuring places. Although there were around 1 million people seeking refuge on this small island, they all lived in simple wooden houses or tents inside the barren mountains. In order to survive, ordinary people naturally would not care about this. What they wished was that they could quickly leave the demon dwellers' territory. There was a small market on the island where various types of daily necessities like grains, rice, wheat, and fresh water could be found. In the market, there was a brothel named Spring Breeze Pavilion. The business there was not going so well recently as the ordinary people's interest in pleasure had decreased. The money that they earned was used to purchase food and other necessities for their daily life. However, in the past 2 days, Spring Breeze Pavilion had welcomed a special guest who spent very generously, paying for all the ladies there. It had already been one day of enjoying lustful pleasure, but he still wasn't exhausted. The face of Spring Breeze Pavilion's hostess was full of joy. She held a heavy bag of crystal coins and felt happy, thinking to herself that she had to meet all the requirements of that guest. Many women with typical appearances kept going in and out from a standard room. The women leaving the room all displayed excitement and satisfaction on their faces. However, every one of them had to hobble out of the room, although they all had walked in the room normally. The hostess Yunjia stood right in front of the room with the bag of coins in her hand and peeked inside the room from time to time. Not long after that, a lady who was about 20 years old stepped out with her naked breasts. She staggered out of the room with a blushing face. Just after a few steps, she released a scream, and hurriedly stretched her hand holding onto a nearby column. Xiao Taohua, how is it? Is he continuing? Yunjia rushed forward to support the girl, whose limbs were all numb, as she asked with surprise. The girl shyly nodded with a blushing face and watery eyes. She prettily said, "That young master is not human. His payment is very generous. He has spent so much already." Yunjia slightly chuckled and supported the girl to another room to rest. At the same time, she threw a quick glance into the room, seeing 5 women sleeping deeply, and mumbled with a low voice, "Not enough girls. I have to tell Hong Ying to send some more girls over. If things continue like this, in another day and night, all of these girls will be exhausted." Yunjia, what is the master's identity? Xiao Taohua asked with her red face, leaning against the window as she lightly yawned. "It has been 2 days, but he hasn't taken any rest. Our sisters have taken turns to serve him, but couldn't knock him out. If it continues like this, I won't be able to stand any more. Yunjia, please call someone else. I have to rest tomorrow. He has exhausted my body, and thus I have no strength to do it again." While muttering, she secretly gritted her teeth and then suddenly giggled. No one knew what wonderful part she was thinking of. Yunjia cursed under her breath, but her face was full of kindness and gentleness. "If Hong Ying brings more people here on time tomorrow, I will not bother you. However, if her people are late, you will have to do it again. We absolutely cannot stop. Otherwise, he might destroy our Spring Breeze Pavilion." Xiao Taohua was astonished, while her eyes were as bright as stars. She then said with a hazy face, "He is a guy that can make people love and hate him at the same time. If he lays his eyes on me, I will leave everything to follow him." "Well," Yunjia sneered and said, "I am sure that with his strength you will not survive more than 1 month, as he will kill you on the bed. You better not have that thought." After having listened to these words, the girl was shocked, contemplated a moment before shaking her head, and then forced a miserable smile. Yunjia went out, helped another girl who was shaking, and took her into the room to rest. At night, she arranged 7 charming ladies who had been brought here from other brothels to serve the guest one by one. Either day or night, there were always heart-stirring sounds coming from that room, as if there was a tireless monster continually battling inside. Another day had passed, and that room had begun to quiet down. "No one is allowed to disturb me. Otherwise, bear your own consequence." A voice came out from the room. The last girl staggered out of the room. She just screamed out, "Ah," and suddenly fainted, completely exhausted. 3 days had passed in just a blink. During these 3 days, the guest didn't have any requirements. He didn't call any girls in to serve him, nor did he have meals or drinks sent in. He just stayed in the room. Yunjia was secretly scared, but didn't dare to visit and check on him. After 3 days of rest, the girls gradually restored their strength. They surprisingly realized that their skin became smoother and the wrinkles on some 30-year-old girls had disappeared. Their faces were snow-white and glowingly healthy. A few frail girls also recognized that their bodies were much better, no longer weak as before. All the girls gathered twittering on about their discoveries. They all felt several years younger as there were no more wrinkles on their faces. Their skin renewed its vitality, and even their strength was much better. These discoveries surprised them greatly. They were now grateful to the guest who had tortured them badly the past few days. They gathered in front of that guest's room to see if he needed anything else. After having learned that those girls had some physical changes, Yunjia was secretly astonished. Waves of love surged up again after many years of restfulness. She waited for another day, but didn't hear any commotion from the room. She couldn't wait any longer nor cared about that guest's rules. She pushed open the door of the room and entered. The room was empty with only a heavy bag of crystal coins set on the table. After having heard the news, the other girls all rushed to the room and then discussed boisterously together. As that mysterious guest had secretly left, they were embarrassed and resentful at the same time, blaming him for being ruthless. A small light boat. A sturdy young man with a solemn face was sitting on a 3-meter-long wooden boat. He was looking straight ahead with his cold eyes. There was neither sail nor oar in the boat, but it was moving very fast on the sea, like a fish swimming. This man was Shurian. During the battle on Wind Island, he had borrowed the strength of the 3 great living forms and used the mysterious sword to kill more than 10 warriors with a high cultivation base while having been surrounded by the 3 god realm warriors Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth. He had harvested vigorous aura from the dead warriors. That significant amount of aura was unimaginable. During the mystery martial spirit's purification process, he had once again fallen into a backfire that was much crazier and fiercer than before. Reluctantly, he had gone to Spring Breeze Pavilion Toe, give vent to his sexual desire in 3 days and nights, releasing all of the crazy lust in his body. He had also balanced his mind and had completed the mutation process. At this time, 369 acupuncture points and more than 6 billions of his muscle fibers in his body had completed their mutation. After the mutation had finished, he could feel the perfection and balance of his body. Previously, when the mutation wasn't complete, he had often felt dizzy, like having a constant hangover. His 2 legs couldn't bear the terrible weight of his upper body, and thus his bones had usually made cracking sounds as if they had been about to break at any time. After the mutation was complete, he realized that the weight of his body could be compared to a mountain that was hundreds of meters high and weighed tens of thousands of tons. However, he didn't have any abnormal feelings. He just felt that the inside of each muscle fiber and acupuncture point contained some sort of violent, bursting power. Although he didn't use profound chi or martial spirit, he still believed that he could defeat a second sky of Nirvana realm warrior in a battle. The power inside his body surprised him a lot. The mutation of the petrifaction martial spirit had reached its extreme. Once he used his strength, his body would instantly show a purple hue, while the surging power from 369 acupuncture points and 6 billion muscle fibers irresistibly spewed out. The power really belonged to him. It was not from the external force anymore. The external force from the fusion of the ice-cold flame, the Holy Spirit God, and the earth flame would be consumed after each battle. After the completion of the mutation, they split off, which made him a little bit depressed. At this time, the ice-cold flame, the Holy Spirit God, and the earth flame had come back to the blood vein ring. As they had been exhausted, they had entered their long-term dormant state. He had no way to communicate with them. That made him feel a little guilty, but he didn't know what else to do. He thought to himself that when he reached a certain extent of the realm, he would make it up to them. The boat was moving effortlessly on the sea. Shurian was going to an island in the Blackwater Sea today. He had asked around and knew that some people of the Xia family were residing there. After contemplating for a while, he leaped up from the boat and then descended on the island. He stayed hidden in the mountains and searched for those he wanted to find. Chapter 359. Tell her that I am still alive. Chapter 359. Tell her that I am still alive. Deep in the mountains, Shiryan wandered erratically, like a ghost, toward the forest. He flew incredibly fast through the woods, not following a straight line but an arc instead. Recently, he had tried both the electric shift and starlight, and luckily he had discovered that these two techniques could be combined, which helped enhance his flying speed one step further and made his flying trajectory more unpredictable. The electric shift moved in a straight line, taking the instantaneous burst of profound chi as a motive. Starlight was synchronized with the stars' moving tracks in the sky. The directions and timing both had marvelous changes. In a fight, starlight had a miraculous effect which made people unable to distinguish between an attack and his whereabouts. However, it was such a waste if it was just being used as an ordinary means of transportation. After having combined electric shift and starlight, he used profound chi as a motive as well as relying on the flying rule of starlight to follow an arc-shaped track. By doing that, not only did he consume less of his strength, but the flying speed was also faster. Moreover, he could change the trajectory instantly and shift to starlight at once. Therefore, if he encountered enemies on the way, he could confidently move forward, relying on the unpredictable starlight to sabotage all of the enemy's attacks. The news of many forces in the Hangluo Sea uniting to exterminate him had been spread throughout the endless sea. All warriors had heard about this. During this time, Shiryan had searched for the whereabouts of the Xia family's people and received the news along the way. After the three strange living forms had separated, he had no power to confront God, realm warriors. In this situation, he had to make wise choices. Moreover, the mutation of his body had completed, so he didn't need to continue taking risks anymore, and thus he chose to leave the Hangluo Sea to find Xia Xinyan. On the way, he was always vigilant. Once he detected warriors with a higher realm, he would proactively avoid them, preventing his whereabouts from being revealed. In the forest, he effortlessly flew like a misty smoke, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Gradually, he entered deep inside the forest. Lush, verdant, immeasurably high ancient trees were everywhere. Although the sky and earth auras inside the forest were not rich, plants and trees still grew very well. Some beasts also appeared from time to time. However, most of them were low-grade beasts, and thus he didn't really care about them. Not long after that, a figure slowly appeared, vigilantly looking around. That person's eyes suddenly brightened up when looking toward where he was hiding. "Friend, where do you come from?" Zhou Yu took a deep breath and was secretly alert while he concentrated profound chi in his two hands. Rustling, rustling. Shiryan pushed the dense leaves and stepped outside. He looked at the sky realm consecrator of the Xia family and asked, "Are you a Xia family member?" "Why you need to ask when you already know?" Zhou Yu snorted while his hands emitted a flow of dazzling purple light, suspending like misty, miasmatic smoke in a swamp, dashing toward Shiryan. In that smoky light, numerous broken green points collided with each other, bursting out a tremendous power, enlarging the covering range of the smoke further. A powerful binding force came out from the purple smoke and enclosed Shiryan in a scope of 50 meters. Shiryan looked worried. His eyes flashed up with a strange light, and his skin instantly turned purple. Zhou Yu's eyes lit up while he felt astonished. He couldn't help but be about to take actions again. This person clearly only had the Nirvana realm, but still was able to break down his binding net that he had cast out. Moreover, not many Nirvana realm warriors had that kind of strength. The fact that a Nirvana realm warrior could give such pressure to a Sky realm warrior like Zhou Yu made him immediately change his contemptuous look toward Shiryan. He was about to put forth all of his powers to kill that unidentified little rascal. "I am Shiryan." Just as Zhou Yu was ready to release a brutal blow, the young man on the tree suddenly spoke up with a low voice and solemn face. Zhou Yu, who was gathering his strength, instantly ceased the attack as he his words. His eyes brightened up, and his face changed to be cheerful. "You are young Master Yen." Shiryan slightly nodded, carefully observing the expression changes on Zhou Yu's face. He waited until he was certain that Zhou Yu was honest and sincere. When he felt assured, he then jumped down from the tree, stood in front of Zhou Yu, and said, "I want to know where your lady is." "I don't know." Zhou Yu shook his head, forced a faint smile, and said, "Several days ago, while we were on the way to the Snow Dragon Island, we received news from Our Lady saying that we had to stop going to the Snow Dragon Island and return to the Hengluo Sea. After having received that news, we immediately went back, and since then, we haven't had any other news from her. We don't know where she is now." Shiryan's face suddenly darkened. "Young Master Yen, there is a rumor about you. I don't know if it is true or not." A trace of grief glimmered in Zhou Yu's eyes. The rumor that Qian had killed Xia Shengchuan had spread out through the Hengluo Sea. However, Zhou Yu didn't want to believe it was true. He just assumed that it was just some trick of the Gu family and the Dongfang family used to split up the Xiao family. Seeing Shiryan right now, Zhou Yu could no longer bear the doubt and thus finally asked, "The rumor is true." Shiryan nodded with cold eyes. "That Qian destroyed his soul right in front of me." Zhou Yu's eyes immediately turned red. He gritted his teeth, stiffened his face, not saying a word. "And you guys, how are you now?" Shiryan kept silent for a while and asked again. "The Xia family has been divided into two sides. One side is led by Xia Ruixing. After having heard about Master's death, they have chosen to submit to the Holy Spirit sect and the Spirit Treasure Wonderland of the Blackwater Sea. Our side continues to stay in some peaceful sea areas and wait for Our Lady. However, she is still not here yet, so we are very worried, not knowing if something has happened to her," Zhou Yu said. "Nothing will happen to your lady. Perhaps she will come back to find you soon." Shiryan spoke to Zhou Yu after having contemplated a little bit. "Don't tell anyone that I have come here. Currently, all forces in the Endless Sea want to kill me. You guys need to be careful. If your lady sends out some news here, please let her know that I am still alive." "Young Master Yen," Zhou Yu was astonished, wanted to say something, but then stopped. "All right, that's it. Take care. The Xia family will not have to hide for so long anymore. I believe the Xia family will rise again soon." Shiryan didn't mention Xia Jingho as he was afraid that he might have given Zhou Yu too much hope. If Xia Jingho didn't get any better after using the Vein Spirit Pellet, Zhou Yu would feel extremely disappointed. After having finished his words, Shiryan waved his hand and left determined without lingering or waiting for Zhou Yu to ask anything further. Zhou Yu dazedly watched Shiryan's figure gradually disappearing with a complicated face. This was the first time he met Shiryan, and he felt that Shiryan was indeed worthy of being Yang Tian Emperor's descendant. He had something to be proud of. "Zhou Yu, who has just come?" A figure appeared. Xia Shenmao flew over from the rear of the mountain and then asked with a cautious face, "Was it the people of Xia Ruixing coming here to persuade us again? I don't care if they leave, but convincing us to yield to the Holy Spirit sect and the Spirit Treasure Wonderland is too much. They don't feel ashamed. That year, when the Xia family was still strong, the Holy Spirit sect and Spirit Treasure Wonderland were always under our oppression. But right now, Xia Ruixing and his men even surrender to those two forces. They are shameless. If eldest brother knew this, he would certainly be mad. Master is dead." Zhou Yu's eyes were reddened. He muttered, "He has just confirmed it. It is true that Qian has killed Master. His soul has been scattered and perished." Xia Shenmao's body shook violently as if he was hit by a fatal blow. He staggered backward a few steps and then glassily said, "Impossible, impossible. This is not true, not true. The person who has just come here is Shiryan." Zhou Yu released a sigh. He is worthy of being the strongest one of the Yang family. He has reached the Nirvana realm, and his power now is terrifying. He will not just stop at his current realm. It seems the rumor is true. Another consecrator of the Xia family came out, holding a letter in his hand, and said in fear, "Our informant has just sent more news, saying that Shiryan has killed hundreds of warriors, even though he has been alone in the Hengluo Sea. Those warriors were from different forces in the Endless Sea, including demon dwellers. The most unbelievable thing in the letter is that he has cut off one arm of Demon Master Ma Chidan and has also injured the hierarch of the Corpses God sect and the Queen of Sky, Fan Shangyun of Yinyang Wonderland." What? The bodies of Xia Shenmao and Zhou Yu were shivering violently. They simultaneously screamed out loud while their eyes glinted with a trace of both joy and fear. On a light boat, Shiryan was sitting straight on a boat with an emotionless face, avoiding crowded seas, moving toward the east. Glittering starlight shone down. He quietly perceived the marvelousness of the star martial spirit, using it to absorb the star power of the sky and earth, indulging himself in the star martial spirit, feeling the stars' trajectory, and experiencing the moving principle of the stars in the world. Flows of spiritual power that were invisible to ordinary people gradually penetrated his body, becoming nutrients for the star martial spirit. The painful lesson on the Sun Island had taught him that only superior strength that went beyond all others would allow him to dominate this world and do whatever he wanted. Only breaking through new realms would make things happen as he pleased. He didn't want to see his beloved ones become dead bodies. The death of Jiao Hani, Linda, and Xia Xinchuan had ignited an ambitious flame of becoming powerful inside his heart. After leaving the Sun Island, everything he had done was to enhance his body strength. Killing demon dwellers and warriors of the Endless Sea or ravaging others was the goal of becoming stronger as fast as possible. Every day, every night, every hour, every moment, he was always sinking deep in thought. He thought about the marvelousness of different martial techniques, experienced the essence of various strengths, and tried to perceive and comprehend all of them. He never relaxed. Instead, it looked like he was possessed by the devil. Chapter 360, The Northern Dipper Net. Chapter 360, The Northern Dipper Net. The sun went down and then came up again. Shiryan was sitting on the wooden boat. He closed his eyes, meditating during the day, and watched the starry sky at night with fascination. In the desolate god palace of the Three God sect, he had soaked himself in the star pond, opening the star martial spirit, through which he learned how to use the power of starlight, star shield, and star manipulation. Starlight was a martial technique that followed the magical trajectory of the stars in the sky. Star shield used the star power to release star wings to escape. Star manipulation could be obtained after having comprehended the stars, using the star power as an attacking method. He assumed that he had thoroughly comprehended the meaning of starlight and star shield, as he could combine these two types to exert power in a battle and increase his combat effectiveness. As for the star manipulation, the most profound one to master thoroughly, one was required to understand the operation rules of the stars in the sky and also know their true meaning in the heaven and earth. Therefore, Shiryan put more effort to study star manipulation, as he felt that it was very mysteriously unpredictable and seemed to contain endless possibilities. It was as if the true mystery of the star martial spirit stayed hidden on the star manipulation. Thus, it was only until he had a profound understanding of the star manipulation that he would then truly comprehend the star martial spirit and be able to perform it everywhere to reach a new realm. Late at night, stars were like gems shining and twinkling in the dark velvet sky. In the primitive age, when the Grace mainland had just been established, the stars in the sky had existed as early as anyone could remember, maybe since the beginning of time. The history of those stars was far older than that of the Grace mainland. Endless mysteries and many truths about heaven and earth stayed hidden in the vast sea of stars. The more he watched the stars, the smaller he felt in this world. He had a premonition that once he understood the mystery of the stars in the sky, he could escape the confinement of the Grace mainland and enter the galaxy to explore the infinite mysteries there. his restful mind submerged in the ethereal realm. He looked at the stars, which looked like gems filling the entire sky, while feeling a marvelous connection with them through the star martial spirit. The connection was very delicate. He tried to release a small trickle of his soul consciousness toward the sky, slowly penetrating the immense sea of stars. However, every time his soul consciousness drifted above the clouds in the sky and was about to escape the constraint of the Grace mainland, his mind became sluggish and distracted. The strand of soul consciousness which had been released would instantly return to his body. There always existed a wall in the dark. This wall seemed to exist at the horizon of the Grace mainland and shackled his martial spirit. Every time he wanted to pass through this wall, he was affected by its power, which led to his martial spirit's failure and destroyed all his efforts. He didn't give up, but kept trying again and again. He launched his soul consciousness to the sky every night, trying to get rid of the wall's barricade. However, all of his attempts failed. As soon as he is close to touching the wall, he instantly failed. After countless unsuccessful attempts and innumerable failures, he finally came to a conclusion, which was that it must be due to his unqualified realm. Without reaching a certain realm, his soul consciousness would be affected by the wall's power. Once his soul consciousness came close to the wall, a force would immediately push it back to his body, and thus he would no longer be able to feel the existence of the wall. He gradually affirmed that only when he had increased his consciousness and upgraded his realm, he could touch that wall, drilling through it to enter the vast sky and understand the true meaning of the star's operation. Although he had encountered many failures, it didn't mean he gained nothing. Numerous trials of releasing the soul consciousness to the sky were also a process of condensing the soul consciousness, making it grow stronger. Thus, the covering range of his soul consciousness expanded a little, and the method of using the soul consciousness became more profound than before. Previously, when he had released his soul consciousness, he could only sense some volatilities of life within a radius of a few hundred miles. After many attempts, his soul consciousness could now cover a range of thousands of miles. Except for warriors with a profound cultivation base who could retrieve their soul fluctuations, nothing could escape his induction, whether it were human fluctuations or beasts' activities. Although Shiryen temporarily left the soul consciousness penetration in the vast sea of stars aside, he still kept concentrating, watching, and studying the stars. During the day, he rested his mind and meditated, experiencing any changes of the star martial art. At night, he continued gazing at the stars. While watching the stars, he engulfed his spirit into them, checking the changes of the star martial spirit in correspondence with the stars in the sky, feeling their connections, studying the related mysteries, and trying to discover a higher level of star manipulation. There were countless star domains in the sky. Plenty of stars created the star manipulation. With mindful observation, a star domain looked like a natural, mysterious star formation, which had its typical trajectory and its own marvelousness. When he could understand that the stars in the sky were divided into different star domains, and each of which had its own unique magic, he would not waste more time paying attention to the entire star sky. Instead, he would focus only on just one star domain. He then put all of his mind and effort to study the closest star domain, where he could easily perceive the Big Dipper. He concentrated his eyes and mind only on the Big Dipper's star domain, watching 7 twinkling stars. It was unknown how many nights had passed. One day, when the night fell, the Big Dipper appeared in the star domain that he had been gazing at. The Big Dipper, formerly as small as a piece of grain, now seemed to gradually enlarge. The distance between him and the Big Dipper seemed to be shorter. The Big Dipper's twinkling dots started to appear in his eyes. The star martial spirit in his heart also had 7 stars, which somehow corresponded with the Big Dipper and made a connection with the stars in his eyes. The Big Dipper used to be as small as a piece of grain, but now it was getting bigger in his eyes. It was unknown how much time had passed. Under his attentive look, the Big Dipper's light in his eyes had suppressed all the other stars in the sky. The Big Dipper had been very small, just like a grain of rice, but it now suddenly became as big and dazzling as 7 mountains. In his eyes, the Big Dipper in the sky had become 7 enormous star mountains, and the distance between him and them was now extremely close. Abruptly, the star martial spirit in his body flashed up at the same time as the 7 stars in his eyes. In the dark, the Big Dipper also seemed to transmit 7 streams of light, creating a connection with him. Something in his head convulsed. When he was in a daze, a light suddenly flashed up. At this moment, his soul consciousness suddenly flew out and attached to the 7 stars. He felt like his soul consciousness was wandering around the Big Dipper, leaving the Grace mainland and entering the vast star domain of the Big Dipper. He silently perceived all of these during an unknown amount of time, through an unknown number of spaces, passionate and tipsy as if he was possessed by the devil. Fading at night and reappearing in daylight, however, in his mind, the Big Dipper was always bright and immortal regardless of day or night. It seemed to be a long-term phenomenon that had existed for countless years. His host's soul flew out from his head, quietly suspended in the sea of consciousness. He raised his head, looking at the sky, feeling like the Big Dipper was at his fingertips. With such a state of mind, his body didn't move, his eyes didn't even blink as he stared at the sky. He was in a stupor for more than half a month. Within half a month, it seemed like he had entered a secret scene where he then realized the truth of heaven and earth. Profound chi in his body continued flowing down to the wooden boat, which was quietly sailing on the desolate sea, moving toward the east. Time flew by. Late at night, Shiryan was still looking at the sky. The brighter the 7 stars in his eyes were, the more frantically his heart was pounding. 7 streams of starlight, which naked eyes could see, looked like 7 springs pouring down from the sky, crossing the space barriers and appearing above Shiryan's head. 7 transparent streams of starlight, like springs, flooded down. Although Shiryan couldn't directly absorb them, he could still feel the mysterious intimidation. 7 springs condensed into 7 meteorites, forming and maintaining the Big Dipper's formation while moving continually. His eyes and the star martial spirit suddenly were ablaze. Shiryan sat straight on the wooden boat as if he could control the 7 meteorites. Wherever his eyes moved, the meteorites flew accordingly. Standing in front of his eyes was a reef that looked like an imposing mountain emerging from the sea. When his eyes moved over them, the 7 meteorites were still revolving, emitting starlight to all directions, and then suddenly rushed toward him. Boom, boom! An earth-shaking impact occurred when all 7 of the meteorites collided on the jutted reef. Countless beams of starlight sparked on the reef, turning a mountain-like rock into ashes, and thus the reef no longer existed in this world. In the huge explosion, Shiryan's eyes restored their consciousness. The 7 stars gradually disappeared, but his eyes were full of stars glowing in the dark. Since the borrowed power of the Big Dipper displayed the profound meaning of the star manipulation, I will call it Northern Dipper Net, Shiryan murmured with a low voice and bowed his head, revealing a smile. Chapter 361, Top-Class Warriors. Chapter 361, Top-Class Warriors. Late at night, the moon appeared like a silver tray hanging over the 1,000-sword peak. Gu Shao, Yu Qin, Dongfangju, Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth were closing their eyes, sitting with solemn faces on the 1,000-sword peel. They appeared to be waiting for someone. Not long after, dazzling fires came from the west as the sun god Tang Yuannan rode alone on the flame unicorn, stopping among the 6 god realm warriors. He looked at them coldly and then spoke up. "I don't know why have you called me here." When Tang Yuannan was talking, the sun power of his body condensed a scorching aura slowly spreading out from his body, covering everyone. The 6 people of Gu Shao's group suddenly opened their eyes and looked toward Tang Yuannan simultaneously. Bring Shiyan out. Gu Shao took a deep breath. His pupils looked like 2 sharp swords, dashing toward Tang Yuannan. Tang Yuannan's face slightly changed. He looked at Gu Shao, shifting his eyes to the others, and said coldly, "Is this the decision of all 6 of you?" The group of them nodded, all together with unfriendly manners. "I don't have him," Tang Yuannan snorted, revealing a cold smile. He shook his head. "If you couldn't find him, why would you rely on asking me? Is the 3 gods sect that easy to bully?" "Hierarchy Tang," Qingming shouted solemnly. Clusters of green fires flickered in his eyes, which were glinting with a vicious trace. "After the battle between that little rascal and Ma Qidan, you were the one who took him away. Although he has come out later, you certainly have a connection with him somehow." The Queen of Sky, Fan Shangyun, also sneered. "During this time, we have been searching the entire Hengluo Sea. We have even checked around in the Kiara Sea, but we couldn't find that little rascal's whereabouts. The Endless Sea is very big, and many of us have exerted our God Realm cultivation base to search for him. However, we couldn't find anything, not even a trace. If you didn't hide him, who else did? Was it the remnant of the Yang family? As I have said, he is not in my hand." Tang Yuannan beamed a cold smile and continued, "The 3 of you have united to deal with him, but still let him escape. And now, you assume that you could use your soul consciousness to find him? Although I don't know how mysterious he is, I think if he could escape your siege, he would absolutely be able to avoid the search of your soul consciousness. You come to me after you couldn't track him down yourselves. How rational is that?" "Hierarchy Tang." Yu Qin revealed a faint smile and said, "We have not only united, but we have also borrowed secret techniques, using the God Realm's soul consciousness together with secret treasures of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland to carry the search to the entire Hengluo Sea and the Kiara Sea. However, we still couldn't find his trace. Not to mention that little rascal has only the Nirvana Realm. So even if he had the God Realm cultivation base, he shouldn't be able to escape from us when we join forces. Only the God Palace on the seabed of the 3 gods, sect with strange formations, can prevent our soul consciousness. If he is not at your place, where else can he be? Don't waste time talking with him." Qingming was livid with rage, standing up while the superb adjoined corpse's flame was burning up in his eyes. "If we unite together, destroying the 3 god sect is not a difficult matter. After demon dwellers had invaded the Endless Sea, the 3 god sect hasn't joined forces with us nor participated in our actions. Apparently, they have wicked intentions. That little rascal progresses every day, and thus his intimidation is growing larger every day. When he really grows up, none of us can survive." "That's right." Fan Xiangyan also stood up and said, "Instead of being wary of him day and night, we'd better solve it completely once and for all." The faces of Gu Shao's and Yu Qin's group looked unfriendly. They seemed to have the intention of joining forces to kill Tang Yuannan. But at this moment, the moon in the sky suddenly brightened up. A pretty figure quietly appeared under the moonlight. A beautiful silhouette flew out from that full moon-shaped circle of light. That circle of light absorbed the moonlight in the air and then fell to a 5,000-meter-high mountain beside the 1,000-sword peak. Boom, boom, boom. That circle of light hit that 5,000-meter-high mountain, and thus instantly split and was broken down into countless stones. Interwoven with the moonlight, a full moon-shaped circle of light, like the moon god, sharp blade, quickly flew to the mountain, crushed it into innumerable broken stone pieces, and thus made it collapse instantly. A horrible oppressing pressure pressed down from that beautiful silhouette, enveloping everyone. The moonlight in the sky hastily condensed and congregated at that shadow, making her momentum soar crazily and endlessly. The faces of the group of Gu Shao and Yu Qin were suddenly discolored. They looked at that beautiful silhouette with fear. Want to destroy my three-god sect? Are you ready to receive your own sect's consequences? The pretty silhouette was vaguely floating in the moonlight. The voice was clear but cold, containing a cruel and frightening tone, clearly showing a threat. 6 god realm warriors, all quieted down. Shiryen is not in the three-god sect. If you really want a war, then we are willing to serve you, being surrounded with the moonlight, that beautiful silhouette coldly said. Demon dwellers' threats have not been solved yet, but you still want to destroy our three-god sect. And then you assume that you are those who can save the endless sea? It is ridiculous. After having finished talking, that appealing silhouette turned into a streak of moonlight and left. The sun god Tang Yuanan sneered coldly and said to the people of Gu Shao's group, "It is my honor to introduce to you the moon god Ouyang Lushuang. She has just entered the god realm not long ago. Before that, she had absorbed the 1,000-year moonlight and had been able to integrate the moon power of the ether. In this vast, endless sea, except for Chao Chiodao and Yang Yitian, I am afraid that no one can match her strength. If you don't believe it, you can try." After having finished his words, without concerning with the horrified look on the faces of Gu Shao's group, Tang Yuannan rode the flame unicorn, turning into streaks of sunlight, and quickly left. The 6 people, including Gu Shao, Yu Qin, Qingming, the Queen of Sky, the King of Earth, and Dong Fengju, looked at each other, and then shifted their eyes to the high mountain that had just collapsed, all quieted down with grimaces on their faces. The dark demon area. Fierce, towering white bone columns blockaded the Yang Tian Emperor, making his skin all disappear. Standing on the bone stage inside the formation technique, Yang Tian Emperor had become a blood-dripping skeleton, which had only tendons attaching it to the skeleton. He looked terrible, while his face was a mix of blood and flesh. It looked like he had been tortured to death. There was a white bones Dharma body standing next to the bone stage. At this moment, that white bones Dharma body spoke up. "Yang Tian Emperor, do you want to feel more comfortable?" On the bone stage, Yang Tian Emperor's eyes, which were now only bare sockets without skin or flesh, were still just as bright and sparkling as before. He calmly looked at that white bones Dharma body and then said, "You are just wasting your time." Bo Sun revealed a cold smile. "This is your last chance. The corpse soul bridge will be completed in several days. In 3 days, Qian's and my real body will officially step into the endless sea. In a maximum of 15 days, the 3 great dark kings of the underworld will also enter the endless sea. By that time, the endless sea's people will be in misery, and it will become the paradise of demon and dark dwellers." Yang Tian Emperor's eyes finally revealed a glint of terrified light. His bloody face slightly shivered, but he still didn't say anything. "Yang Tian Emperor, you are very good at playing tricks. I don't know what kind of tricks you use to help the Yang family stay hidden in the demon area. I have been searching around but couldn't find anything. If it weren't because you had this arrangement, there wouldn't be a way for them to prevent my soul consciousness from finding them just by relying on their own ability," Bosun snorted. "For 1,000 years, the Yang family has always gone in and out of the 4th demon area. The time I have stayed here is even longer than our time in the endless sea. My understanding of this demon area is not less than yours. Even you, Bosun, still don't know there are some strange areas in this land." Yang Tian Emperor proudly smiled and said, "Even if I die, as long as they follow my orders, you will never find them. The area that you explored last time is just a fake one that I set up. After going there, perhaps you suffered quite of a loss." A flame rose up in the sockets of the white bones Dharma body. "That's right. We thought that we found the Yang family's hiding place, but then realized that it was a trap. Many of my men were killed, but thanks to their death, the progress of building the corpse soul bridge has been accelerated. As you know, I cannot kill my own family members for the corpse soul bridge, Because of your arrangement, the completion of the bridge is getting much closer. I actually should thank you. Yang Tian Emperor's eyes changed afterward. You have the good grandson. That little rascal Shurian has caused us many troubles in the endless sea. He has even cut off one of Ma Chi-dun's arms. I don't know what you have done to that brat, so that he, with his Earth Realm cultivation base, could injure Ma Chi-dun, who had the boundless demon saber in his hand. Bo Sun beamed a cold smile and continued, however, it is in the past. Once my real body enters the endless sea, the only pawn you have left will easily be killed. Your successor will have his soul scattered. Cut off Ma Chi-dun's arm? Yang Tian Emperor's eyes brightened, and he suddenly burst into laughter. So after all, it is not a waste to spend the immortal blood for him. He is really the lucky star of the Yang family. I had known that there were some mysterious things in his body, but I never thought that he could be exceptionally outstanding like this. Ha ha ha, brilliant kid. It seems that I still underestimate him. That little rascal is the same as you, making enemies everywhere. Currently, not only are we searching for him, but forces in the endless sea are also hunting him down. I have heard that he has escaped the siege of Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth. Moreover, he has injured the Queen of Sky severely. This brat is too much like you. He doesn't care about life and death or letting someone in his eyes. Bo Sun looked excited. Unfortunately, as for human beings, that characteristic is nothing different from bringing the perdition. We can obviously imagine his outcome. Human beings don't respect strong top-class warriors or potential youths. It is your greatest sorrow. A sign of sadness gleamed in Yang Tian Emperor's eyes. He nodded. Yes, I know how those people are. I hope he can have my luck this year and overcome all the bad things. If he doesn't die this time, his achievement in the future will surely be much more than mine. Ha ha ha. Those kinds of people like Qing Ming, Fan Shangyun, and the King of Earth used to conceal when seeing me before. I really want to see them being pursued everywhere they go and killed by Shurian. Ha ha ha. I do believe that day will come. Arrogant. Bo Sun snorted coldly. You just wait and see. In a maximum of 1.5 years, I am sure I will bring that kid's head to you. As soon as he finished his words, flames inside the white bones Dharma's pupils disappeared. Bo Sun's host soul had left. Yang Tian Emperor kept silent for a long while before revealing a faint smile and muttering, Good kid, wait a little bit more. We will see each other very soon. In this world, who can really confine me? Chapter 362, The Strange Land. Chapter 362, The Strange Land. Shurian sat on the wooden boat, spending sleepless nights trying to perceive the northern dipper net, immersing his mind in deep thought. He always used his star martial spirit to connect with the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, and then borrowed the force from the 7 stars of the Big Dipper to condense into the northern dipper net. Gradually, he had a deeper understanding of the creation of the northern dipper net. Within 3 minutes, he could borrow the star power to condense 7 meteorites out of the northern dipper net. Once the condensation of the northern dipper net was successful, and he could create the spiritual connection with star power, he could then comfortably control and attack any target he wished. Once the 7 meteorites collided with each other and burst out, the power generated was enough to injure the Sky Realm warriors severely. Although their power was no match for the combination of the 3 living forms, the ice-cold flame, the Holy Spirit God, and the earth flame, he could freely use it without worrying that it would drain out. The most important thing was that he somehow didn't feel the current northern dipper net at its ultimate form. Shurian had a premonition that the more profound his comprehension of the meaning of the stars was, the more powerful the northern dipper net would be. One day, the wooden boat suddenly entered a dark, boundless sea area. The strange and mysterious scene around had woken him up. Raising his head to look at the gray misty fog, he felt the peculiarity. He then suddenly released his sole consciousness to observe his surroundings. As soon as Shiryan's soul consciousness left his sea of consciousness, it was instantly tied up as if mud was binding it. It didn't dissipate, but it couldn't reflect the surrounding environment to the sea of consciousness either. In this sea area, the murky fog shrouded over his head like a huge cage, which seemed to have strange magic that prevented any warrior who entered this area from using his soul consciousness to sense the situation. With a slight change in his face, Shiryan rested his mind and meditated. He then suddenly realized that the connection between the star martial spirit and the stars in the sky had been cut off. He no longer felt the power of the stars in the sky, and he couldn't borrow that power to look through the misty fog. He thus figured out where he was. The dark, magnetic, noxious mist. It was the extreme eastern edge of the Endless Sea, which was the most mysterious and evil sea area, enveloped by a thick fog for billions of years. Inside this dark, magnetic, noxious mist, soul consciousness couldn't work. Other powers of the heaven and earth were also affected by this dark magnetic field, and thus had no effect here. This mysterious sea area could influence warriors' souls, making them fall into strange fantasies. Heaven and earth aura didn't exist here either. Standing on the wooden boat, closing his eyes to sense around for a while, Shiryan was eventually certain that he had come to his desired destination. On the Sun Island, Xia Xinyan used to tell him about both mysterious and strange things in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. She said that behind the dark, magnetic, noxious mist was the center of the Grace mainland, where many mighty beasts dwelled. Many strange treasures of heaven and earth had disappeared, and many mysterious secrets existed here. It was a good place for warriors to cultivate themselves in following the dark path. The current situation of the Endless Sea was very complicated. Warriors from all over were searching for his whereabouts. After the division of the 3 living forms, his real realm was only the Nirvana realm. Although he was confident that he could endure the Sky Realm warriors, he couldn't withstand God Realm warriors. Therefore, he had wisely decided to avoid the danger for now and not participate in the chaos in the Endless Sea. He wanted to enhance his body strength, and thus he was determined to go to the dark, magnetic, noxious mist before his mutation was complete. On the one hand, he wanted to take advantage of the dark, magnetic, noxious mist's environment to sharpen his own strength. On the other hand, he hoped that he could find Xia Xinyan. Previously, when he and Xia Xinyan had separated, Xia Xinyan had gone with Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi, who were from the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. He had a premonition that Xia Xinyan was still staying with them in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. Hence, he came here with the hope that he could see his lover again. The wooden boat was moving slowly on the sea. Quietly sensing around, Shiryan's face gradually changed. His pupils glinted with surprise. Without heaven and earth aura and under the impact of the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, other forces of heaven and earth couldn't exist in this noxious mist. So, if he consumed all of his profound qi, how could he supplement them? To attain profound qi, it required heaven and earth aura. With that thought, Shiryan shuddered and hurriedly sent his spirit into the blood vein ring and took a high-graded, profound crystal. Earlier that year, before entering the chasm battlefield, Yang Luo had brought hundreds of high-graded, profound crystals and given them to him. He still kept these pure crystals in the blood vein ring, but because his mystery martial spirit could recover its power through murder, he rarely used these pure crystals. However, when entering such a strange place like the dark, magnetic, noxious mist where heaven and earth aura didn't exist, he suddenly remembered the pure crystals in the blood vein ring. Holding a chunk of pure crystal in his hand, Shiryan activated his power, trying to absorb heaven and earth aura inside it. Strange things happened. The heaven and earth auras that had just been taken out of the pure crystal were influenced by the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. They evaporated instantly, not able to turn into condensed aura for him to absorb. Not effective. Shiryan's face became dignified. The idea of leaving the dark, magnetic, noxious mist appeared in his mind. According to Xia Xinyan, there were various kinds of strange and dangerous things in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist where beasts raged fiercely. In this place, the only thing he could rely on was the force in his body. If he couldn't supplement profound qi, he would consume all of them really soon. If things kept going like this, he would be exhausted sooner or later and have no way to survive. Hence, he had to consider things more carefully. While he was hesitating, he suddenly raised his head looking around and immediately realized that he seemed to be lost. There were no sun, moon, or stars to identify the directions here. Surrounding him was the dark sea without any obstacles, reefs or islands. And the seawater under his feet was not calm. He bowed his head to look and realized that the water flow kept changing, and thus his boat kept moving. He didn't know how many times his boat had changed directions. In this case, even if he wanted to go back, he was uncertain that he could find the same way to return. Thus, there was only one way, which was going to continue forward, going further inside this area, reaching the center of the Grace mainland. Shiryan forced a wry smile and subconsciously shook his head. As God's will was so, it seemed that returning was now impossible. He then had to continue moving forward, hoping to see the mysteries that could surprise him inside the mist. Thinking in silence for a while, he became relaxed and tried to adapt to the current situation. He sat down, no longer sending his profound qi to the boat, but instead let the flow of water drive it freely. Without wasting his soul consciousness and profound qi, he held his breath, looked straight ahead, while calmly waiting, being aware of any special circumstances. Without the sun, moon, stars, or concept of time, all he could do was just sit still and let the boat flutter freely on the sea without any idea of where he was heading. One day later, Shiryan's eyes brightened up. His wooden boat suddenly floated up into the air and slowly flew forward. The strange thing was he wasn't using any force. In the thick, misty fog ahead, he could vaguely see a huge black shadow. This shadow was suspended in the air like a magnificent mountain, which gave people a strange, insecure feeling. With a tense mind, Shiryan was fully cautious. His eyes flashed up, looking at the huge black shadow ahead. He didn't know what it was. The wooden boat slowly approached as the silhouette of the shadow gradually became clearer. It was a mountain indeed. This mountain was hundreds of miles high, strangely floating above the sea, suspended in the air. There were plants, tree, flowers, but no beasts and other creatures. It was unknown where this mountain came from. It kept floating in the sky like an air balloon, not seemingly affected by gravity. Shiryan was extremely astonished. Quietly sensing around, he immediately realized that there was no gravity here. Not only that, but the sea under his feet also emitted a faint gray smoke, which seemed to have some force that made the wooden boat fly up to the sky. He instantly decided to leave the boat, and after having consumed just a little bit of profound qi, he already arrived on the mountain peak. Sitting atop the mountain, Shiryan looked down, observing this miraculous place. A colorful light beam suddenly flew over from the mountain in front of him. Shiryan watched attentively for a moment and realized that this beam of light had definitely been released from a warrior. According to the direction of where that light beam came from, he knew that the place was thousands of meters away. However, because of the ineffectiveness of his soul consciousness in this area, together with the thick fog, he couldn't see the warrior who had shot out that beam of light nor knew the opponent's cultivation base. He continued sitting for a while, observing the mountain, and then thought that he should go and check what or who it was. He didn't understand much about the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, so if he could meet that warrior, he would have many of his questions answered. With that thought in mind, he immediately used his profound qi to move toward its direction with moderate speed. Chapter 363. 3 Males and 2 Females. Chapter 363. 3 males and 2 females. A 1,000-meter-high mountain was suspended above the sea. A dazzling light beam dashed over from behind the mountain, accompanied by soft sounds, which were like the beasts roaring in the distance. Shiryan stopped moving to watch that beam of light with cold eyes and carefully observe it. He then realized that the light contained extraordinary power, and the warrior behind the mountain should have the cultivation base in the second or third sky of Nirvana realm, or maybe in the sky realm. He secretly asked himself how intimidating that realm was, and at the same time, he tried to observe if there were god realm warriors or not. After that, he then felt more secure and quietly moved forward. Without gravity, when his body moved, it looked like a soft, elegant willow dashing forward with breakneck speed. In only 3 minutes, he already arrived at behind the mountain. Hiding under a cliff, he quietly stuck his head out and observed the fight behind the mountain. 5 warriors were holding various secret treasures, violently fighting with 3 golden ice snow dragons. The group consisted of 3 males and 2 females. All of them were still very young, around 20 years old. The 2 girls had beautiful, slender bodies as well as profound cultivation bases which seemed to be in the sky realm. The 3 males had sturdy bodies and prominent appearances. 2 of them had blonde hair, blue eyes, and had the third sky of Nirvana realm cultivation base. They should be brothers, as they looked quite alike. The other one was a little bit younger. His face was long and pointed, his eyes were cold, and he also had the third sky of Nirvana realm cultivation base. 3 males and 2 females together fought with 3 golden ice snow dragons. They were taking the upper hand in this battle. There was another golden eye snow dragon's body on the ground on the side. Blood was dripping out from its head. Its demon crystal should have been taken by those people. Golden eye snow dragon was the 6th level beast, which could be compared to a Nirvana realm warrior. It had great strength and a sturdy build. Ordinary weapons could hardly injure it, and thus it was tough to deal with. These 5 warriors with their outstanding abilities had jointly killed 1 golden ice snow dragon. As for the remaining 3 golden ice snow dragons, one of them was severely injured. Its tail had been cut off with blood and flesh blended stickily. It was continually roaring and resisting. As he watched the fight in front of him, he realized that the 3 golden ice snow dragons didn't seem to be able to withstand the others' attacks any longer. They would soon be killed like the other dead golden ice snow dragon. It was unknown where these 5 young warriors came from and how they could have such a profound cultivation base, together with sparkling secret treasures in their hands. They didn't look like ordinary people. Shiryan had been watching them for a while, and he was secretly aghast as he realized that the martial technique of these 5 warriors was quite mysterious. They were certainly 1 level higher than the outstanding young warriors in the Endless Sea. Fragmented blade. The female in a silk gown with a piece of sapphire tied on her waist suddenly shouted. The many sword lights that shot out from her jade-like hand were snow white, bone-chilling, and very dangerous. They instantly pierced through 1 golden eye snow dragon's body. The 5-meter-tall Tuet-Long Sioux was abruptly stagnant in the air while its body emitted beautiful lights, splitting into different blocks. It had been slashed to death without shedding a drop of blood. Seeing that golden eye snow dragon killed, the remaining 2 were finally panicked, ran away in 2 different directions. One of them was severely injured and blocked by the 4 people. Various attacks were cast out, striking and throwing that golden eye snow dragon back to the sky. The other golden eye snow dragon, which was not wounded, let out a roar, dashing toward the place where Shiryan was hiding with breakneck speed. The female in the silk gown suddenly swung her arms, leaped up, and quickly chased after that golden eye snow dragon like a cyclone. The distance between her and that golden eye snow dragon was getting closer. Shiryan stood up with a slightly changed face. That golden eye snow dragon seemed to see him, suddenly roared, and opened its mouth, bursting out a stream of icy silver light. "Stop it! As the female, who was chasing that golden-eye snow dragon, saw Shiryan hiding there, she quickly called him out for help. Shiryan's face darkened. When he saw that silver light approaching, he raised his hand, blasting the life seal. 7 handprints merged into one and struck the golden-eye snow dragon. Boom! The golden-eye snow dragon was bombarded by the life seal and bounced backward. The icy silver light that dashed toward Shiryan was melted by the heat of the earth flame and disappeared, leaving no trace. Right after being hit by the life seal, the last golden-eye snow dragon was then attacked by the girl's fragmented blade, even before it could stabilize its body. It was split into 16 blocks of meat, floating in the air, and fell away slowly. Shiryan's eyes flashed up, staring at that golden-eye snow dragon's body. He realized that after it had died, those blocks of meat seemed to be affected by gravity, and thus instantly fell on the mountain. The girl who had used a secret technique to behead the golden-eye snow dragon quickly flew over. Her fingertips shot out a slender beam of silver light toward that golden-eye snow dragon's head and then took out a sparklingly bright demon crystal. While she had been casting out her attacks to kill this golden-eye snow dragon, the other 4 warriors had also succeeded in exterminating the other injured one and harvesting 1 demon crystal. A while later, the 5 warriors gathered in together atop the mountain, looking toward Shiryan. Shiryan was standing on a cliff, observing with knitted eyebrows. He hesitated a little bit before moving toward those 5 warriors. He stopped when he was about 20 meters away from them, secretly on the alert. "Where are you from?" The girl in the silk gown, who was quite tall, squinted her eyes looking at him and asked while her hands were still playing with the demon crystal. "The endless sea." Shiryan contemplated for a moment before calmly replying, "Endless sea." The girl seemed to be a little hazed, looking at the other beautiful girl next to her, and asked gently, "Kai, have you ever heard of that place?" Through the dark, magnetic, noxious mist toward the west, it is said that there is a sea area where plenty of warriors gather. It seems to be the endless sea. The girl whose name was Kai wore many colorful bracelets. Every time she swung her arms, crisp and sweet sounds resounded. She revealed a faint smile with a slightly despising look on her face and said, "Ayaya, the endless sea, is a barbaric place. Although there are some powerful warriors there, it is still far less than our divine land. I have heard that the ancestors in the endless sea were warriors who couldn't develop in divine land, and thus they had crossed the sea to the endless sea, starting to live and form their forces there until now." "Ah," the girl named Ayaya slightly nodded without saying anything else. The 3/3 sky of Nirvana realm men threw a disdained look at Shiryan. One of them, who was wearing a cold face, also whispered, "Turns out he is an immigrant from an undeveloped area." Shiryan arched his eyebrows but didn't say anything. He was actually surprised. In his eyes, the endless sea was a vast area. A lot of warriors that were much stronger than those in the Merchant Union. Unexpectedly, in these people's eyes, the endless sea was just a place of barbarians and laggards. After having thought a while, he suddenly said, "Are you from the center land of the Grace mainland on the east of the dark, magnetic, noxious mist?" The 2 girls displayed their disdain, slightly smiled but didn't say anything. The other 3/3 sky of Nirvana realm men proudly nodded with superior manners. Shiryan had originally wanted to check with these 3 men about the situation around. However, as he saw their arrogant attitude, he felt disgusted. An intention of talking with them had soon gone. He nodded with a cold face, clasped his hands, and said, "See you again." After talking, he turned around and walked away. "Wait a minute," Ayaya suddenly spoke up. Shiryan shuddered, but his face didn't change. He was secretly well prepared. If something bad happened, he would immediately start to take actions first. The 5 of them with high cultivation base, miraculous martial techniques, as well as secret treasures in their hands, were all outstanding talents like Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi, those whom he admired. If they really had wicked intentions, he had to use all of his power to be able to escape. Having come to this world for only 1 or 2 days, he understood well the danger of this place. He clearly knew that a powerful warrior here could kill someone else without any reasons. "What is it?" Shiryan asked as he turned his head around, revealing a smile like he didn't take any precaution, and looked at her with calm eyes. "You helped me earlier, so I give you a part of this demon crystal as a reward." Aya's words were simple and gentle. While she was talking, a dagger emerged in her hand, cutting the demon crystal into 3 parts. She then snapped her fingers, and one piece of the demon crystal flew toward Shiryan. Swoosh! Aya, each demon crystal in this dark, magnetic, noxious mist is very precious. Why are you wasting it? It turned out that was the man with cold temperament. "Borg, my father has taught me that when you owe someone a favor, you always have to repay it." Aya slightly squinted and said with a cold tone, "We should give him that part of the demon crystal. Without him, no one could have killed that golden-eye snow dragon. It is fair. Do you have a problem with what I am doing?" Right after she had finished her words, a dangerous aura suddenly was emitted from her body. Chapter 364, Virtue and Evil. Chapter 364, Virtue and Evil. The young man whose name was Borg instantly realized that the aura was coming from her body. His face slightly changed. He frowned and said, Aya, I don't want this demon crystal for myself either. I just feel he will not be alive for long here. In this dark, magnetic, noxious mist, only demon crystals of the beasts can be used to supplement the consumed profound chi. Each demon crystal here is precious. As we have just entered this place, we need to try our best to gather more demon crystals and shouldn't waste any of them. After talking, Borg threw a cold glance at Shiryan and said arrogantly, "This kind of immigrant from the laggard area will die anyway, even if he has demon crystals. Giving it to him is such a waste." Shiryan slightly frowned. At first, he hadn't been interested in demon crystals of the snow dragon and had intended to refuse Aya's kindness. However, after having heard that guy back catch say that the demon crystals could supplement profound chi in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, he immediately changed his mind and determinedly decided to fight for it. That was why he didn't refuse it, but looked at Aya to see what she would say. "I said give it to him. Didn't you hear me?" Aya's countenance was getting worse and worse. Borg secretly snorted while his eyes shot out a trace of coldness. He then threw Shiryan the piece of crystal in his hand. The speed of his throw was so fast that it made the piece of crystal screech like a weapon, piercing through the air like a shooting star. Shiryan's face remained unchanged. Seeing the crystal approach, he raised his hand and clenched his fingers. A flow of bright light flew out from it. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as the demon crystal fell into his hand, a group of forces burst out wrapping around Shiryan's hand. Shiryan revealed a faint smile and quickly used his strength to control the demon crystal. The light on his fingertips suddenly condensed into something that looked like a white glove covering his hand and then gripped and constrained the demon crystal. When Shiryan turned his hand over, the demon crystal piece instantly fell into the blood vein ring. Without saying anything further, Shiryan nodded at Aya, didn't bother Borg's harsh look, turned around and walked away. "Wait a second." Kay smiled elegantly and spoke up. Shiryan reluctantly turned back as he asked impatiently, "What else?" "Friend, being alone in this dark, magnetic, noxious mist is a little bit dangerous indeed. I am wondering if you are interested in accompanying us for a short trip." Tsai's oval face was quite charming. Her shiny, succulent red lips could mesmerize other people. Danger is everywhere in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. If you go alone, You might either consume all of your profound chi or be killed by wicked things. If you go with us, at least you will have less unnecessary troubles. What do you think? Sister. Borg got irritated. He couldn't help but shout, "Why do you want to carry this burden? If he acts recklessly, he will harm all of us. What's made you think of this?" Kai smiled sweetly, winked at Borg, signaling him, and she then looked at Shireen, seeming to wait for his decision. Aya knitted her eyebrows, strangely looked at Kai with an astonished face, and didn't say anything further. The two well-built young men with blonde hair and green eyes, who were standing at the side, slightly chuckled and nodded quietly. Shireen was suspicious, looking at those people and about to refuse them. However, when he witnessed their attitude, he was hesitant. He knew that this Kaiwei didn't have good intentions. Inviting him to accompany them was, in fact, just to use him. However, as he had just entered the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, he knew nothing about this place. He had heard Xia Xinyan talk a little bit about some mysteries of this place, but as for the details, she didn't know. In this case, traveling alone in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist might be dangerous. This group of warriors had a high cultivation base as well as a profound understanding of this place. Although going with them could lead him to encounter unpredictable events, he still could get more information about the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. Even if they didn't tell him directly, he could still have more of understanding about this place by paying attention to their conversations. He just needed to be careful. If the situation wasn't good, he would immediately leave them. It should not be too difficult. With that thought, Shireen quietly considered, then burst into laughter and said, "Well, I know nothing about this place, so I will have to bother you." After talking, he stopped walking and maintained a safe distance with the five of them, revealed a smile, looking at them. "All right, we will need to take a rest first to restore our strength. Meanwhile, you can get familiar with the use of the demon crystal." Kai beamed a faint smile, nodded at Borg, and said, "Brother, you help take guard for me. Be alert to the unexpected appearance of the beasts." After talking, Kai gently flew away. Borg reluctantly turned around, looking at Shireen coldly while murmuring something, and then caught up with Kai. "Sister, what on earth are you doing?" Borg walked toward her with a resentful face and complained, "Isn't it better to let me kill that rascal to take that demon crystal back? We have discussed it before." But then Aya pretended to be fair and kind. "Do you also want to act like her?" Dark, magnetic, noxious mist had quite a lot of special things. One of them was soundproofing. Thanks to that, although the two of them stood just hundreds of meters away from Shireen, they were not worried that Shireen would be able to overhear their conversation, not to mention that they also intentionally lowered their voices. "You are such a fool." As soon as Kaiwei had flown away, her smiling face instantly became cold while her beautiful eyes emitted an icy aura. She sneered and said, "That guy is only in the second sky of Nirvana realm. You can easily kill him, but if you do so, you will consume more of your profound chi. Do you know how important profound chi is in this place? How long we can survive depends on it. Wasting it means you will die faster. Are you stupid or what?" Seeing her cold face, Borg was a little scared and couldn't even speak normally. "But that demon crystal! Can 1/3 of the demon crystal be enough to make up for the profound chi that you would have to consume to kill him?" Kai snorted coldly. Borg was stunned a little bit and then shamefully said, "No." "Idiot." Kai bluntly cursed. "Do you think that Aya really wanted to give up 1/3 of the demon crystal? She just wanted to use it to entice the opponent and thus weakened our strength. With your personality, after being scolded by her, you would sneakily leave us and kill that rascal? If you do that, you already fall into her trap." Borg's face changed instantly. "If you leave us, and you will be on your own. What you gain is far less than what you will lose, even if you can get that demon crystal. Later, if you encounter other warriors or beasts or any traps in this dark, magnetic, noxious mist, you will hardly be able to keep yourself alive. Kai continued emotionlessly. Aya has just used 1/3 of the demon crystal to entice that little rascal, and he has already wanted to take actions with you. Even you are lucky to be alive. Still, you have consumed some of your profound chi already. Thus, she has gotten what she wants. Idiot. After Borg had listened to Tsai's curse, his face immediately changed. He was scared and broke out in a cold sweat, contemplated for a long while before gritting his teeth and speaking up. That woman's heart is indeed barbaric. After having entered the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, our group only has 5 people left. Aya still retains her power and thus harvests the most. In the critical point of time, she will push others to death before herself. She always uses the least of her power to get the most benefits. If you continue to be stupid like this, she will kill you sooner or later. I have reminded you many times, but you never listen to me. You really don't know what life and death are, Kai said unhappily. Borg felt ashamed, constantly nodded. Sister, I am wrong. Remember, you shouldn't take any reckless actions next time. Did you see if the other 2 brothers, Laoluin, have said anything? Kai was giving her brother lessons while knitting her eyebrows, looking at the 2 of guys with blonde hair and blue eyes at the same time. She lowered her voice and said, When you take action, be careful with the 2 brothers, Laoluin. Although their cultivation bases are only in the 3rd sky of Nirvana realm, if they join forces, their real strength can be compared to Sky Realm warriors. Even I am not sure if I could defeat them. So, you should not underestimate them. Borg shuddered as he became quietly more watchful, nodded his head and asked, Sister, why did you ask that little rascal to stay with us? Idiot. Kai displayed a disappointing look. Have you and the brothers Laolin taken the same path recently? Borg nodded honestly. Pathfinding is the most dangerous task. If being surrounded by a flock of beasts, a pathfinder would be killed for sure. If accidentally getting lost in a trap, a pathfinder wouldn't be able to preserve his or her life for very long. Therefore, I asked that kid to go with us to replace you to trace the path, using him to protect your life. You have to be grateful to him for taking the risk for you. Understand? You are such a fool. Kai said with disappointment. Thank you, sister. Borg was moved and said, Talk less, observe more. Don't be a blind fool being controlled by others. Kai scolded him and then closed her eyes. Guard for me. Don't let anyone come close, especially that Aya. Yes. Borg bowed his head and bent down, obediently standing next to her without any negligence. He also understood that the reason why his sister cared for him was that he still had his value. If he couldn't do this task well, he would lose his value, and maybe his sister would not care about his well-being anymore. With that thought, he was even more serious as he secretly guarded against Aya in the distance. His face slightly changed when he saw Aya slowly walking toward that strange rascal because he thought that she had a plan. Borrow that rascal's strength. He was suddenly resuscitated and enlightened after Tsai's curses. Therefore, right now, the way he looked at Shiryan was no longer hostile, but pitiful. This kid was really unlucky as he was being fooled by his sister and that wicked Aya, and yet he was still grateful to them. Chapter 365 Beasts, Dangerous Traps, and Humans. Chapter 365 Beasts, Dangerous Traps, and Humans. My name is Laoli. I am Laolin. The 2 guys with blonde hair, blue eyes, and sturdy bodies looked at Shiryan, sneered, and introduced themselves. Shiryan. Nice to meet you, Shiryan. I hope that we will get along well during the journey ahead. After talking, the 2 guys beamed a smile, walked shoulder to shoulder to another place about a few hundred meters away from Aya and Kai, and then sat down. One of them, took out a demon crystal and meditated to restore his strength. The other stood to the side, staring at the void like he was in a trance. Shiryen remained calm and secretly observed the brothers Laoluin and Laoli. Then he looked toward Kai and Borg and said to himself that this group seemed to have constraints among them. While Kai was restoring her profound chi, Borg was guarding for her. Laoli and Laoluin were also on alert. It turned out that this group of 5 was not in solidarity. They were taking precautions against each other. Kai and Borg were on one side. The 2 brothers Laoluin and Laoli were on another side, and Aia was alone. Although the 3 parties were traveling together, they didn't trust each other and were always on alert. They were very cautious, even when they were restoring their strength. It was easy to see that these 5 people didn't get along well as he had originally thought. After observing these people secretly for a while, Shiryen realized their strange relationships, and he thus didn't dare to let down his guard and was even more cautious. After the 2 brothers, Lao had introduced themselves. Aia arched her eyebrows and walked over to Shiryen. She stopped 10 meters away from him and coldly said, "I am a little bit curious about the Endless Sea. Can you tell me about the place?" The girl in a silk gown with a jade belt wrapped around her small, appealing waist asked. She had beautiful, straight legs. Her thighs were vaguely exposed through the thin silk, which was mesmerizing. She was standing alone. Her eyelashes were very long, and her lucid eyes were as clear as water. Sometimes they flashed up with beams of light as if they wanted to pull men's souls into their pupils. Before, as Shiryen had stood quite far away and been on the alert when he had first met her, he hadn't carefully observed her. As she was approaching, Shiryen goggled watching her and couldn't help but praise her, as he had never thought this girl was this heart-stirring. Her beauty could be compared with Xia Xinyan and Chao Jilan, which was the root of all troubles. The Endless Sea was in the west of the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. There are only 5 sections where warriors gather, including the Kiara Sea, the Hengluo Sea. Shiryen said with a low voice and a calm face. He told her about the situation of the Endless Sea, but didn't mention the forces there, the invasion of the 4th demon area and the 7-fold underworld, nor about his origin or his situation in the Endless Sea. "Such an interesting place!" Aya's long eyelashes slightly shivered while she whispered and revealed a thoughtful look. After a long while, she suddenly looked toward him and curiously asked, "Why do you come to this dark, magnetic, noxious mist? Did you come here to get to the Grace mainland?" "I come here to temper myself," Shiryen said indifferently. "I have encountered a bottleneck during my cultivation. I have heard that there are many mysteries in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. So I came here to try my luck, to see if I can find something here to have a breakthrough." Aya's eyes brightened up while she nodded. "It seems that the Endless Sea has good warriors." Shiryen sneered, but didn't say anything. The dark, magnetic, noxious mist has 3 fatal dangers: beasts, dangerous traps, and humans. Aia hesitated a little bit and then said gently, "Beasts are the easiest to deal with. Dangerous traps are the second. Humans are unpredictable and the most terrible ones. You should be careful when you are here." "Humans?" Shiryen's face darkened. "That's right, the same kind as ours." Aia nodded earnestly, glanced at the other groups of Kai and Laoli, and then said to Shiryen, "You have to be careful with the people next to you. In this place, companions are nothing. In crucial moments, not only are they not trustworthy, but they can be a fatal threat." After mentioning this, Aia seemingly wanted to continue, but then stopped, pondered for a few seconds, displayed a complicated look, then threw a glance at Shiryen and said, "Being alone is sometimes safer. You are alone, so you should take good care of yourself." When her plump thighs under the thin silk moved slightly, Aia had already flown hundreds of meters away and quickly disappeared into thin air. Borg and Laolin, who were taking guard, seemed to let out a sigh of relief when they saw Aia fly away. Their vigilance was slightly relaxed as they felt more assured and sat down. Shiryan shuddered within his heart. Through this small detail, he immediately realized that Aya was probably the most dangerous in this group. Among these 5 warriors, Aya and Kai had the Sky Realm cultivation base, while the other men had the 3rd sky of Nirvana Realm. Shiryan recognized that no one in this group had good intentions, or was trustworthy, or easy to deal with. Among them, the guy Borg, who was impatient and easily irritated, was the easiest one to deal with. The remaining 4 people were all calm and discreet. He especially could not see through Kai and Aya. However, he felt that these 2 girls were always against each other. They seemed to be harmonious, but it was not their true mind. The 5 of them had divided into 3 teams, scattering in 3 directions. They took turns to absorb the demon crystals to restore their profound chi. They didn't talk to each other, which gave others the feeling that they were getting along well, but they were actually guarding against one another. After carefully observing for a while, Shiryan regained the calmness in his heart. He quietly backed off and stopped when he was 800 meters away from Laoluin and Laoli, who were nearest to him. Looking around, he noticed that behind him and to his sides were rocky mountains, and thus the predictable danger could only come from the front. He sat down, took 1/3 of the demon crystal out, and started to absorb the power inside it. Different from other demon crystals, this demon crystal had been taken out from the beast's body in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, and thus it could adapt to a particular environment, not able to be dissipated. Demon crystals were indeed nutrient supplements for the power's restoration. Golden Ice Snow Dragon was a 6th-level beast, which was equivalent to a human Nirvana realm warrior. The power of this piece of demon crystal was not vigorous anyway. Demon crystals, after all, were not pure chi. The loss of the crystal's power was inevitable after it was converted into available profound chi for warriors to use. After the power of this 1/3 demon crystal piece was converted, Shiryan could only absorb half of it, which was equivalent to 1/10 of his profound chi. Before that, when he had cast out the life seal, he hadn't consumed much of his profound chi. This small piece of demon crystal helped him not only restore the amount of the consumed profound chi when he had used the life seal earlier, but also reinstate a part of the amount of the depleted profound chi from the past few days. While meditating and waiting for the demon crystal piece in his hand to become a useless stone, he felt the profound chi in his body about to reach its peak, around 9 out of 10 parts. Although he didn't reach the peak yet, he was already satisfied. He squinted as he looked ahead and saw Laoli and Kai had completed their power restoration and were keeping watch for Borg and Laoli to meditate. No one knew where Aya had gone. As she was alone and didn't trust anyone, she obviously had to choose a remote corner to ensure that there would be no unexpected events taking place during her meditation. Shiryan carefully observed everything and continued to maintain his meditating posture. After a long while, Borg and Laoluin completed their power restoration. The 4 of them then gathered in one place and waved at Shiryan. Shiryan stood up and walked toward them while still staying alert. When he was around 10 meters away from them, he stopped and comfortably asked, "Should we continue on our way?" He quietly observed them and found out that Borg's hostility had weakened compared to earlier. Although he still wore a cold face, his eyes no longer had any sign of hatred. This gave him some doubts, as he didn't know what Kai said to Borg for his attitude to change that much. Aya hasn't returned yet. Wait for her for a while. Kai stated pretentiously, revealing a sweet smile as she boringly played with a bracelet on her snow-white arm. Aya doesn't trust anyone. She doesn't allow anyone to come close when she meditates. Early on, we had another companion. As she was meditating for quite long and hadn't come back, that person was worried and went over to call her. That person didn't come back afterward. Nobody knows what happened. A strange light flashed up in Shiryan's eyes. Kai coldly smiled in her heart, as she had got what she wanted. She didn't say anything further, just sneered and looked toward the direction Aya headed earlier. The 5 people suddenly quieted down and no one spoke. Thus, the atmosphere was quite strange. Not long after that, Aya quietly appeared from a distance and gently stepped forward, moving effortlessly. "We can go now," Aya said, her face looking indifferent. "Now that we have one more member, we should reallocate the Pathfinder job. What do you think? Let the newcomer do it then. He has to do it at least 1 or 2 times." Kai slightly chuckled as he threw a glance at Shireen and said, "Pathfinder is the easiest job. As soon as he discovers a danger, he immediately retreats. This kind of job is a test for the newcomer's reaction and observance. What do you say?" Kai looked at Lauli, Lauluan, and Borg. Unsurprisingly, the 3 of them nodded, seeming to have reached an unspoken understanding. Aya nodded as she saw the majority of the crew agreed, and then said, "I don't know much about this place. You go first to find a way. If you encounter beasts, you should call us. If you see dangerous traps, you have to retreat. If you meet humans, you have to observe their cultivation base and the number of people." Shireen said to himself that it was not going well for him. After linking thoughts in his mind, he finally beamed a smile, nodded in agreement to take the task, and said, "Not a problem." Chapter 366, Pathfinder. Chapter 366, Pathfinder. Shireen was reluctant. These 5 people clearly didn't have good intent when they asked him to stay. He had been well prepared, as he had guessed that they would ask him to do the Pathfinder's job. However, in his view, it would not be safer if he left these 5 people and went off on his own. His understanding of the dark, magnetic, noxious mist was too little. Venturing around in here, he might encounter powerful beasts or dangerous traps. Therefore, what they asked him to do was not too difficult to do. There were 5 people divided into 3 parties that watched over each other. This was exactly what he had expected. He thought to himself that although he would not be completely safe, he could still take advantage of these 5 people to handle several affairs as he pleased. If they united, he would not dare to stay with them for much longer. He also knew that Kai and Borg wanted to use him, turning him into a sacrifice. In the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, there was no heaven and earth aura, and hence, if ordinary warriors wanted to restore their profound chi, the only way was to kill the beasts. However, he was different. He considered Kai, Aya, Borg another kind of beast. If they died, he would absorb all of their auras and thus restore his strength. With his specific mystery martial spirit, nothing was impossible, even in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. As long as someone died, he would get what he needed. Therefore, staying with these 5 people would probably bring him benefits as well. This group always had bad intents toward him, so why should he care? "Are you ready? Let's go." Aya was slightly surprised as she saw him readily agree with a nod. She took out a delicate, square compass from her storage ring. A strange pattern was engraved on the surface of the compass. Its 4 corners were encrusted with 4 demon crystals, which seemed to provide energy for the compass. Aya held the compass in her hand. Her small finger pointed to the center of the compass, seeming to identify the direction. Kai didn't say a word. Her eyes gazed at the compass in Aya's hand, paying attention to the direction that the compass pointed as she was in fear of Aya's mischief. In the middle of the compass, a silver needle was slightly trembling before it stopped and pointed to the left side of Shireen. Aya looked at that direction for a moment, put the compass back into the storage ring, and then said, "The direction has been determined." Kai and others nodded with a smile. Aya didn't say anything further. As the tip of her foot slightly touched the stones on the ground, she instantly leaped up, flying away with moderate speed, as she wanted to save her profound chi as much as possible. "Shireen, aren't you coming?" Kai waited until Aya had left, moved a little bit backward, looked at him with a smile, and said, "You should follow Aya. When she asks you to go to the front, maybe there's something abnormal. Be careful. and remember to shout out loud if you see the beasts. Otherwise, we are afraid that we will arrive there late, and you will probably—" Shiryan's face remained unchanged. He clasped his hands and caught up with Aya. After Shiryan had left, Tsai's smiling face gradually disappeared. She frowned and murmured, "This guy is very careful. I don't know what Aya has told him, but I feel that he seems inclined toward Aya. Aya has the most powerful strength. If she has this guy's assistance, she will be even more dangerous." Borg wanted to say something, thinking to himself that it was his sister who had asked to keep this kid. Borg remembered when Kai had scolded him earlier, and he had endured it without daring to ask. Until now, he felt a little bit puzzled. The brothers Laoli and Laoluin chuckled, while their eyes displayed some secret meanings. They didn't talk to Kai, but flew toward Shiryan instead. Kai coldly smiled and then talked to Borg. "It is not easy to bully that little rascal. You should be watchful. Don't let him be too close to Aya. I am afraid Aya will seduce him, and he will then voluntarily serve and protect her. Although I am not afraid of it, it is still troublesome. If you have a chance, remember to provoke him to break the relationship between him and Aya. It is best if you can make him hate Aya. Do you understand?" Borg was startled, but forced a wry smile and nodded. "I will try my best." Kai didn't say anything further. She flipped her hands, producing a pleasant sound, and flew in Shiryan's direction. Aya was taking the lead, and Shiryan was following her. The brothers Laoluin and Laoli were next, and the last two were Kai and Borg. A line of 6 people maintained the distance of 20 meters from each other. The flying speed was not very fast, as they had to save their profound chi as much as possible. Shiryan was always on alert from in front and from behind, as he carefully observed any movements on his sides. Every time Aya flew to a mountain, she stopped for a short while and took out the compass to check the direction. After determining that there were no abnormalities, she then continued to move forward. Shiryan was 20 meters behind her, watching Aya's indistinct figure in the sea of clouds. In this zero-gravity environment, her body looked like a willow with her small waist, long limbs, and plump thighs. He felt quite pleased, but didn't dare to have any wicked thoughts. They had been flying for a long while. Aya was still silent without uttering a word. She took out the compass to check every time she stopped in front of a mountain, and then hurriedly left, not asking Shiryan to scout. Shiryan didn't dare to relax, always paying attention to the surrounding area, guarding against the 2 brothers, Laoluin and Laoli, as he was afraid that if he were not vigilant, the 2 brothers would ambush him. Suddenly, Aya stopped in front of another mountain, took out the compass, and observed their surroundings. After a while, Aya turned around looking at Shiryan and said, "There is something strange in the gap between the 2 mountain peaks. Go check what is over there." Shiryan nodded and moved to Aya's position while still staying alert. Aya turned her head around, watching him approach. Shiryan knew that Aya was guarding against him. He sneered inside his heart, but still kept a natural look on his face. He didn't look at her. Instead, he focused on the mountain's cliff in front of him. He attentively observed it while exposing a thoughtful expression. Aya's vigilance wasn't reduced. She continued looking at Shiryan until he passed her side and went forward. After that, she then relaxed a little bit, but her eyes were still watching Shiryan's back carefully. There is a high possibility that beasts are hiding on the side of the mountains. You should observe carefully. It is best if you can find out how many there are of them as well as their levels. Just after Shiryan flew past her, he heard her cold reminder. "Yes," Shiryan replied coldly. His face suddenly darkened while he was activating his profound chi. A stream of refining power quietly rolled in his veins. While the profound chi was running, his body slightly trembled. It seemed that the tremendous power in his body could explode at any time. After perceiving the body's transformation, Shurian's eyes gradually calmed down. Aya didn't say a word. Her beautiful, slender body stood in the misty group of clouds in the air while she looked at Shurian with a cold face. Then suddenly she turned around, glancing at the two brothers Laoli and Laolin who were coming close to her. When the two brothers saw Aya's scrutinizing look, they stopped moving and revealed a bright smile. Laoli looked at Shurian, then Aya, and asked, "How is the situation? What can it be?" "Beasts," Aya answered coldly and turned back to look at Shurian. The two brothers didn't ask anything further. One of them looked at Aya, and the other one looked at Kai. They paid attention to both the front and back. The two mountains were about 500 meters high. It was all red on the top of the mountains. Some abnormal trees and plants seemed to grow there. Between these two mountain peaks, there was a saddle which was 100 meters wide. The thick, misty fog made this area even more dark and gloomy. Dense plants and trees fully covered the mountain flanks. Because of the heavy fog, nothing could be seen clearly. There were some faint black shadows which looked like rocks or some plants. In the case where soul consciousness couldn't be used and one could only observe with his own eyes, going closer was the only way to know the situation better. Shurian started to activate his profound chi and got closer to the other cliff. His eye brightened up, staring at black shadows on the two flanks of the mountain, wanting to see what they were after all. Sizzle, sizzle. It was the sound of pythons coming up from the mountain flanks. Shurian could only see the black shadows suddenly move and fly out from the cliff. That shape should be a purple gold python. Purple gold python was a 6th level beast that lived in groups and liked to be in the icy environment. There were 2 yellow and purple round patterns on its skin. Its body was from 7 to 10 meters long. It had sharp fangs and could spew out the toxic fog. Moreover, it could quickly dart out while its big, long, vigorous body could instantly wrap around and break a warrior's waist. As soon as a purple gold python that was wrapped around a tree on the mountain flank saw him, it immediately sprang toward him with breakneck speed while its mouth spurted out purple venom aimed straight at Shurian. With a quick glance, Shurian now realized that there was a total of 8 pythons rushing toward him. His face couldn't help but change. Each of these purple gold pythons was 8 to 9 meters long. Their mouths were full of fangs. Their small eyes flashed up with poisonous lights that frightened people out of their wits. Without thinking, he immediately moved his profound chi to his legs. As soon as the venom reached him, he had already jumped backward. There are 8 6th-level purple gold python. Shurian's figure retreated as fast as lightning and then stopped around 100 meters in front of Aya. He turned his head around and shouted, "Kill them." Aya's eyes brightened up. Her face was a little excited. Her body dashed toward the group of purple gold python like a sharp spear. Chapter 367, The God's Soul Secret Treasure. Chapter 367, The God's Soul Secret Treasure. 8 purple gold pythons arched their heads and waved their tails, diving out from the cliff with incredible speed. Terrifying eyes flashed up, looking brutally at Shurian. Shurian snorted coldly and stood still on the spot waiting for the purple gold pythons to come. If he alone fought with these 8 grown-up purple gold pythons, he was not sure that he could kill them all. However, together with the other 5 people who had unpredictably profound strength, the situation would be different. Indeed, Aya's body looked like a spear that was shot out with intimidating momentum. She instantly came to his position, but didn't stop. Instead, she continued to dash forward into the place where those pythons were gathering. Her slender body kept changing in the air, giving other people the feeling that they could never catch her. A bunch of dark blue lights shot out from her fingers. Those sharp lights, which were flashing on and off, contained an extremely powerful force. The dark blue lights, intertwined in the void, forming a light net covering all of the pythons in just a short while. A clear shout resounded coldly. Aya curved her waist, penetrated the light net in the air, and stood opposite the group of purple-gold python. Fragmented blade! After her shout, a bundle of icy light shaped like a sword flew toward the group of purple-gold python. The 2 purple-gold python in the front were slashed down and split away even before they could spurt out their venom. Under the control of Aya's 5 fingers, 2 pellucid demon crystals instantly fell into her palm and then disappeared into the storage ring right after the ring had flashed up. Behind her, the 4 people of Lali's and Sai's group were worried as they saw Aya had quickly taken the 2 demon crystals first. Thus, they put all their strength into flying over. A bundle of pink light beams suddenly glinted and zoomed across Shiryen, rushing forward to fight for the demon crystals of the purple-gold python. Kai was as charming as a fairy. Her clothes fluttered while the bracelet on her pale arm suddenly flew out, producing a terrifying whistle and dazzling lights. While flying toward the purple-gold pythons, the bracelet suddenly had a transformation. Inside of it shot out a sharp, 1-meter-long saber with blazing lights, slashing the purple-gold pythons into pieces. Borg's eyes flashed up with a furious light. A pellucid, 1-meter-long sword flew out from his sleeve and instantly turned into a giant, 300-meter-long dragon, raising its face up to the sky, howling, opening its mouth and swallowing a purple-gold python whole. A bunch of chilled silk inside that crystal dragon's belly wrapped around the purple-gold python and then crushed it within seconds. The 2 brothers loudly chuckled while both of them were standing on a purple-gold python, controlling its mouth, preventing it from moving. A mighty power burst out from their bodies as they continuously punched the purple-gold python's body. In moments, the python turned into a sticky pulp of flesh and blood. Shiryen stood at the side, frowning and looking at the 5 people killing the purple-gold python. Very quickly, they had harvested all 8 demon crystals. Aya was the fastest, and thus got 3 demon crystals. Kai got 2, Borg had 1, and the brothers Lali got 1 each. 8 purple-gold pythons had been killed, and their demon crystals had been stored inside the storage ring. Although Shiryen had detected the purple-gold pythons first, he didn't get anything. He stood motionlessly looking at them, harvesting the demon crystals. Shiryen wasn't frustrated either. Even though he didn't harvest anything this time, he had carefully observed those 5 people and knew more about their abilities. Among them, Aya was the most powerful. She alone had killed 3 purple-gold pythons. Kai ranked second. The 2 brothers Lali were number 3. Borg was the worst, and he had to use his secret treasure to be able to kill 1 purple-gold python. Aya's martial technique was mysterious. Her actions were quick, precise, and ruthless. Kai was unpredictable with her peculiar secret treasures. The 2 brothers Laoli had terrifying forces. Moreover, they also wore gauntlets which seemed to help increase their strength. Having stood aside and quietly observed them, Shiryen had the better understanding of their abilities as well as their attacking methods. The purple-gold pythons' dead bodies were pulled down into the sea under the gravity's influence and disappeared shortly. The 5 of them carefully stored those demon crystals and seemed to be very satisfied with their harvest. As Shiryen didn't get anything, they comforted him and advised him not to let the opportunity go, but to take action immediately. Shiryen beamed a smile and nodded. His gesture looked like he was modestly listening to their advice. After that, the 5 of them separated again like before, and then used demon crystals to restore their profound chi. 4 of them stayed on this side of the mountain, and Aya went alone to the other side. While Kai was meditating, Borg walked to Shiryen after Aya had left. I did not treat you well earlier because I didn't think you were worthy. However, after this cooperation, I found you are more useful than I have imagined. Borg came over with a smile, seemingly wanting to break Shurian's reservations toward him. Shurian also smiled, looked at Backcatch, nodded, and said, I hope that we can continue to cooperate well. We are happy to work with you. Borg goggled and lowered his voice. At least, my sister and I will have good cooperation. The others, I am not sure. After talking about it, Borg couldn't help but look toward the mountain, where Aia was meditating, and continued with a low voice. As you have known, Aia didn't have good intentions when she gave you 1/3 of the demon crystal. She actually wanted to use it to provoke me to kill you. When talking about this, Borg forced an embarrassed smile. You also know how precious demon crystals are in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. If we want to survive in here, we have to rely on demon crystals. Earlier, as I thought that you were useless but was given 1/3 of the demon crystal, I couldn't help. Borg used those words that Kai had told him, only adjusting them a little bit, and told Shurian almost the same thing. After explaining things for a while, he gritted his teeth and said with a strange voice, Among us, Aia is the most intimidating. She has used different ways to kill other fellows who had entered here with us. Shurian, you have to pay attention to Aia. Don't be killed because of her. I have come here to warn you. If you are alive, I will not have to scout, and thus I really hope you will be alive as long as possible. Understand? Shurian sneered, coldly inside his heart, but he still wore a grateful visage, nodded and said, Thank you, Brother Borg, for reminding me. Ah, as long as you can understand it. Borg revealed a smile, nodded, and then went back to Tsai's place. After that, he began to restore his strength, while Kai was guarding for him. Shurian, you were able to get away from those purple gold pythons. Besiege quickly. Such an amazing reaction. If it were me, I would probably have been poisoned. Lauli, who was not far away from Shurian, laughed and spoke up. The python's venom can paralyze your nerves. Once you are covered with venom, your strength will be gone. The fluid inside a purple gold python's belly is really horrible. Any creatures that are swallowed into their stomach will die shortly after. Shurian was stunned. He was not very clear, but still beamed a smile. Do you want a drink? Lauli raised a bottle of wine in his hand, and without waiting for Shurian to reply, he took out a delicate bowl, filled it with the wine, and then said, You are a mighty man. I am sure you like to drink. Let's drink together and become good friends. Thank you, Lauli, big brother. Shurian walked over with a big smile, as if he was very relaxed without any precautions. He then sat in front of Lauli, took the bowl of wine, and raised his head, gulping down the wine. Nor far away from there, Laulun closed his eyes, meditating. His rough eyebrows, slightly shivered, seemed to be secretly alert, but then quickly relaxed. Ha ha ha! You are indeed our fellow. Lauli burst into laughter as if he was really excited. Danger is everywhere in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. We can be killed at any time. So if we can enjoy a little bit, why not, right? Shurian nodded. You don't seem to know about the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. Lauli asked unintentionally. Shurian was a little startled and humbly said, I accidentally entered this place, and so I have no idea about it. I will need Big Brother to enlighten me. I don't dare to give some lessons, but I can tell you why we came here. Lauli glanced at Kai, who was sitting a little bit further from them, and lowered his voice. Rumor has it that there are two abnormal things deep inside the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. The first one is the sacred-level secret treasure, maybe even the God-level treasure, and the other one is the pure God soul. God treasure? Pure God soul? Shurian was stunned and then asked again. That's right, Lauli confirmed with a nod. Sacred-level secret treasures are very rare. Even in the divine land, it is not like everyone can have it. As for the God-level secret treasures, because we don't have blacksmiths and God-level alchemists in the divine land, the lowest God-level secret treasures and refined pills can be enough to drive people crazy. I think you can understand this point. Shurian was astonished and nodded. As for the pure God soul, do you know how precious it is? Laoli looked at him and asked. Please do tell, Shriyan asked humbly. Chapter 368, Hiding Real Competence. Chapter 368, Hiding Real Competence. You don't know the effect of the God soul. A trace of disdain that Laoli was trying to hide was now revealed in his eyes. He asked Shriyan with astonishment. Shriyan just smiled embarrassedly, didn't explain himself. When a third sky of spirit realm warrior enters the true God realm, he can refine his host soul into God's soul. God's soul has a variety of marvelous effects. One of them is the criterion to distinguish between true God realm warriors and spirit realm warriors. Once the condensation of the God soul is completed, a warrior officially becomes a God realm warrior with an immortal soul. Thus, even if he was dead, he can always use the God soul to be revived. Except for some specific techniques and secret treasures that can destroy the God soul, it is very hard to get rid of. We can say that it is the root of the true God Reem warrior's strength, said Laoli with a solemn voice. Shriyan was stunned for a while before revealing a wry smile, and then said, In the Endless Sea, we don't have true God realm warriors, that's why. The disdain in Laoli's eyes increased a little bit more. He nodded with a smile and said, Is that so? It seems that warriors of the Endless Sea are indeed not as good as our divine lands. In divine land, not only are there true God realm warriors, but there are also more than one. The true God realm warriors in divine land are the supreme existence, the ones in power, and the pillars of divine the land. Shriyan said with surprise, Divine land deserves to be the center of Grace mainland. That is obvious. A trace of pride flashed up in Laoli's eyes. Only warriors of divine land can have a deep understanding of martial arts. All kinds of supernatural powers originate from our divine land. Shriyan beamed a faint smile, nodded without saying anything more. From Lin Yiqi and Yi Zhangfeng, he had faintly known that behind the dark, magnetic, noxious mist was the Grace mainland. The level of the warriors in divine land was indeed better than that of the warriors in the Endless Sea. The supreme warriors of the Endless were only in the spirit realm, while those of the divine land were in the true God realm. It was obvious to tell which one is better. Spirit realm was already God in ordinary warriors' eyes. However, Shriyan had heard that spirit realm warriors in true top-class warriors' eyes were only false gods. A false god and a true god were as different as chalk and cheese. Some people said that true god warriors had the support from the god's powers and possessed earth-shaking supernatural strength. A false god couldn't be compared to it. What are the marvelous features of the pure God soul? Shriyan's heart was agitated. His curiosity was too big that he couldn't help but ask. Some people have said that there is a strange land inside the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. After the true God realm warriors are dead, their souls are still bounded with their bodies due to the impact of some particular circumstances. During many months and years, all the memories are worn out, and only the profound perception of martial arts remains. Laoli took a deep breath. His eyes glinted with hot flames. God's soul in the strange land doesn't have memory, but the perception of martial arts. It is the martial arts perception of the true God realm warriors. Shriyan said in shock, You are saying that. Laoli nodded. Flames in his eyes were intensified. He said, Once we can get the pure God soul, we can perceive their martial arts. Can you imagine how the transformation would be? Shriyan was dismayed, but at the same time he couldn't restrain his greed. Why did Xia Xinyan have that endless potential? Why didn't she have any bottlenecks? Once the power in one's body reached a certain level, that person had to overcome bottlenecks to enter a new realm. It was because of the reincarnation martial spirit. The reincarnation martial spirit was terrifying. It could use the power of reincarnation, but the feature that had frightened people the most was the past life partial arts comprehension. With that comprehension, Xia Xinyan didn't need to worry about bottlenecks, and she would never encounter a possessed by the devil state. Once her strength had accumulated to a sufficient degree, she could easily enter a new realm. Was the pure God soul as effective as the reincarnation martial spirit? If Shurian could just ignore bottlenecks, with the mystery martial spirit in his body, he could go all the way to enter the true God realm. His heart was stirred up. Shurian's eyes couldn't help but shoot out burning lights. It seems you are very clear about the benefits of the pure God soul. Lao Li faintly smiled, poured another bowl of wine for Shurian, while he also helped himself with a big bowl of wine, and then said, "Frankly speaking, the purpose that people enter this dark, magnetic, noxious mist is for the pure God soul and the secret treasures." Shurian quaffed his bowl of wine, quietly nodded as he finally understood why warriors of divine land were not afraid of dangers or fatal incidents and still entered the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. "Thank you for telling me so many secrets." Shurian revealed a faint smile, looked at the bowl in his hand, and continued, "Also for your wine." Lao Li nodded, looked at him with a friendly and bright smile. "Well, we should not keep talking. We don't have too much time. We can continue ahead. Ha ha ha. If you want a drink, you can tell me at any time. My storage ring contains only good wine, enough for us to drink for a long time." Shurian laughed out loud and thanked him. Not long after that, Ayaya flew over from behind the mountain. She was surprised looking at Shurian and Lao Li, seeming not to understand why these two people were staying at the same place. However, she didn't say anything, just looked at everyone, nodded, and said, "Have you guys finished your restoration?" Kai Yi and Lao Li nodded. Ayaya glanced at Shurian and then took out the compass, identified the direction again, and continued to fly away. Everyone else followed her immediately. Shurian continued to stay behind Ayaya, both on alert to any movements around and on watching Aya's small waist, her beautiful thighs, and her round rear end. In the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, there was no concept of time. Thus, Shurian didn't know how long he had been traveling with these 5 warriors. Ayaya was leading the way. Once she detected exceptions, she would give Shurian a signal with her eyes, asking him to go forward to explore. Every time Shurian found beasts and escaped their attacks, Ayaya quickly dashed forward and slaughtered the beasts. Lao Li and Kai Yi, who were not far behind, would also instantly rush and join the battlefield. This time, Shurian joined the fight. He jumped into the fight, and together with the other 5, he had killed quite a big number of beasts. He had finally taken 5 demon crystals. In the battle, Shurian always hid his real strength and had never released all of his forces, nor passed the Rampage realm. He just used the strength of an ordinary second sky of Rampage warrior to fight against the beasts. Therefore, his harvest was obviously the least. His restoration then consumed all of the demon crystals that he had gotten from the fight. Watching the beasts and observing the other's strength, he now knew better about their complicated relationship. Ayaya was quite cold toward him and rarely talked to him. On the contrary, Borg and the brothers Lao Li always took an opportunity to speak with him a few words about the thrill of fighting and the mysteries in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. Gradually, his relationship with Borg and the 2 brothers Lao Li was quite close, while the relationship between him and Ayaya seemed to get worse. Ayaya didn't feel happy when she saw Shurian hanging out with Borg and Lao Li so often, and thus the time she talked to him was less and less. Every time they encountered the beasts, she didn't warn him anymore, as if she was tired of him and wanted him to die sooner. However, every time he confronted the beast's besiege, he always escaped. Not once had he fallen into a desperate situation. Whenever danger passed, the 5 people assumed that he was fortunate and gradually let down their guard against a second sky of Nirvana realm Kiddo, as they thought that even if he had wicked intentions, he would not be able to execute them. This was exactly what Shurian had wanted. He was like a phantom, coldly looking at his prey, staying hidden, and quietly waiting for an opportunity. Today, Ayaya stopped again. The hand of the compass in her hand pointed to a floating deserted island, indicating that Xian should go over there to see what was lurking. Shiyan nodded and flew over carefully without saying a word. This was the first time he saw a small floating island in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist. It looked like a mountain, which was not affected by gravity, floating in the void miraculously. The island was small. There were plants and flowers on the island, but no trace of beasts could be found. Shiyan attentively observed and searched around. He gradually moved to a clear water lake and suddenly heard the voices of some warriors speaking. A thought flashed up in Shiryan's mind. He stayed hidden while quietly moving forward to observe them. 3 warriors with their bare upper bodies were washing the blood off their bodies. They were all males. One of them was in the second sky of Nirvana realm. The other 2 had the first sky of Nirvana realm. There were 2 corpses on the grass which were not far away from the lake. The auras of these 2 corpses had completely disappeared, as they might have been dead for quite a long time. Shiryan hid in the dark, quietly observed them for a while, and then returned without making a sound. Not long after, he stopped in front of Aya and said with a frown, 3 human warriors. One of them is in the second sky of Nirvana realm, and the other 2 are in first sky of Nirvana realm. They have united and killed 2 warriors, and now they are washing the blood off in the lake. There is a lake! Aya exclaimed with astonishment. Shiryan nodded. Aya was a little excited. She suddenly flew away with incredible speed. The other people also rushed to him. Borg raised his voice. What did you see there? 3 warriors. One is in the second sky of Nirvana realm, and the other 2 are in first sky of Nirvana realm. They are washing the blood off their bodies in a lake, Shiryan replied. They suddenly burst into laughter, while their eyes flashed a ruthless light. Kai also said with a charming smile, Finally, I can take a bath. The 4 of them flew toward the small island in a hurry. Chapter 369, The Lake. Chapter 369, The Lake. The group Aya and Kai darted straight to the small island. Borg, Lao Li, Laoluin, and Kai wore ruthless looks on their faces and released murderous auras. They obviously didn't have good intentions. Shiryan was lagging behind. However, he was not in a hurry. He could hear the noise of the battle coming from the small island while he was walking over with a moderate speed and a comfortable look. When he came to the lake, he saw the 3 warriors had already stopped breathing. The 5 of them were surrounding the 3 dead bodies, carefully searching their bodies, and took out the storage ring from their fingers. Aya checked the body of the second sky of Nirvana realm warrior. Kai and Borg checked one of the first sky of Nirvana realm warriors. The brothers Laoluin were searching the last one. The 5 of them carefully flipped the corpses as if they didn't want to miss any precious treasures. Shiryan walked over, but kept a distance with the 5 of them and didn't say a word. A flow of auras from the 3 dead bodies flew toward him, quietly penetrating his acupuncture points, making his spirit comfortable. He didn't struggle for credit nor spoils. He didn't need to take action either. The auras of those 3 warriors were more precious to him than the demon crystals in their storage rings. In the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, profound chi was the most valuable and essential element. If he released his strength to fight with these 3 Nirvana realm warriors, he believed that they would have had no chance of surviving. However, to kill these 3 people, he would have to consume a significant amount of his forces, and the most important thing was he would probably reveal his real strength. It was not something he wanted. Without having wasted any profound chi, he still had harvested the auras of these 3 warriors. No matter what people thought about this, it was the most cost-effective benefit that he could have. Watching the 5 people searching the dead bodies while feeling the auras pouring into his body, Shiryan was quite joyful. It was at this moment that he really believed in Borg's words. Aya was not a good person indeed. Before, This girl hadn't killed him, but she had even offered him a piece of demon crystal, which was clearly unreasonable. In connection with what Borg had told him, he believed that Aya indeed originally had another plan. In the eyes of such people like Aya and Kai, the Endless Sea was just a barbaric land, and thus the warriors of the Endless Sea were useless in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, as they didn't have any precious treasures. That was the reason why they didn't want to waste their profound chi to kill him. However, this time was different. There was more than one warrior. Moreover, they had just killed the other 2 warriors next to the lake, so it was obvious that they had killed to steal. In the eyes of Aya and Kai, these 3 people were worth consideration. Therefore, they had to die. The group of Aya, Kai, and the other 3 carefully searched for a while. The 2 brothers, loudly, slightly chuckled, displayed a happy face as they seemed to be satisfied with the harvest. Aya's and Sai's faces remained normal. Thus, Shiryan guessed they didn't get a good fortune. Borg cursed under his breath as he didn't seem to harvest anything valuable. As Kai and Borg were on the same team, Shiryan still could guess that they didn't harvest much through Borg's curses, although Tsai's face didn't change. After a long while observing, he had already absorbed all of the auras from the 3 warriors. Shiryan secretly sensed the movements inside his acupuncture points and felt assured after having been certain that the auras of these 3 warriors were still within his body's capacity. He then continued looking at the 5 people. Shiryan, bring these corpses away from here. It is not easy to find a lake. We have to take a bath. Kai smiled, sweetly looking at him, asking him to handle the corpses. Aya frowned while her eyes slightly brightened up. She seemed to have the intention of taking a bath as well. Women naturally loved cleanliness, especially those who were exceptionally beautiful like Aya and Kai. If they were not in the dark, magnetic, noxious mist, these 2 girls would have bathed themselves and taken care of their appearance every day. And now, as there was a lake here, it was no wonder why both of them were excited. Okay. Shiryan beamed a faint smile, obediently walked over, took the 3 bloody corpses, and quickly flew away. The corpses, whose auras had completely been drained by Shiryan, would soon dehydrate and shrivel. He had just thought of how to cover the situation, and thus what Kai asked him to do was exactly what he needed right now. So, he was very pleased to do this task. Kai was satisfied with Shiryan's hard work. After he had left, she revealed a sweet smile and said, having a person in the team who will die for us in danger at critical times and take care of miscellaneous things at other times is not bad. While talking, Kai looked toward Aya, but didn't catch any reaction from her. She coldly snorted inside her heart, staring at Borg, then indifferently looked at Lalun and said, We girls want to take a bath. Should you 3 guys go away? The 2 brothers, brightly smiled, nodded, and walked away. Borg was a little bit stunned, couldn't help but look at Aya and ask, Sister, should you wait until profound chi is restored and then wash up? It has been a long time since I have taken a bath. Finding a clean lake is hard. I can't wait anymore. After talking, Kai threw a glance at Aya, smiled, and said, Aya, do you want to wait? Aya nodded indifferently, coldly looked at Borg with a frown, and said, You are not going to wash up yet. Borg bowed his head, secretly cursed, turned around, and left. Shiryan dragged the 3 dead bodies to a remote mountain quite far away from the lake. After having thrown these 5 bodies aside, he sat down, feeling the refining process inside his acupuncture points. After having entered the 2nd sky of Nirvana realm, the auras of the warriors who had the same level as his were not vigorous for him anymore. The time the mystery martial spirit took to purify it was not too long. When he had still been in the Hangluo Sea, he had killed quite a number of Nirvana realm warriors. Thus, he understood well about the purification time that the mystery martial spirit required. He knew that the auras of those 3 dead warriors would be purified completely after 1 or 2 hours maximum. He believed that the negative emotions that had been dragged along with their auras would not affect his mind and push him into a violent situation. Because of this self-confidence, he was not in a hurry but waited in silence instead. Half an hour later, the screams of Borg and the two brothers Lowly suddenly came up from the lake. Cheyenne frowned, stood up with suspicion, and quickly flew over. Not long after that, when he arrived at the lake, he saw the three people Borg, Lowly, and Laoluin walking around the lake. Borg was still shouting, "Sister." The two brothers Lowly and Laoluin knitted their eyebrows and hurriedly asked when they saw Cheyenne, "Have you seen Aya and Kai?" Cheyenne shook his head with surprise. "Aren't they washing up in the lake? What happened? They have gone missing?" "Half an hour already." Borg spoke up with a gloomy face. "I had been waiting for her for a while, so I didn't feel right and went to the lake to call her. But she didn't respond. I am worried that she might have been in some accident. However, after checking around the lake, I couldn't find my sister or Aya. How could it be?" Cheyenne continued with a surprised look on his face. "I just threw the 5 corpses away and was resting a bit, but I didn't see anyone coming or leaving. Aya and Kai certainly didn't go in my direction." Borg's face changed. He said, "Except for your direction, we have searched all other directions. Have they possibly left the island?" "Impossible." Lowly and Laoluin shook their heads simultaneously. "They just took a bath in the lake. Since they disappeared strangely, could they be under the water?" Cheyenne pointed to the lake. Borg, Lowly, and Laoluin were all startled, rolled their eyes looking at the clear lake, and suddenly felt a little uneasy. None of them moved. They were in a daze for a while and then looked at him. Cheyenne cursed inside his heart. He had soon known that although these 3 people looked friendly with him, they all had their purposes. Obviously, as they were aware that Aya's and Sai's missing case should be somehow related to this lake, they all were afraid of the lake, and thus they didn't dare to search it. Faintly sneering, Cheyenne didn't show emotion on his face, pretended not to see their eyes, and walked to the lake. He frowned and squatted down, reached out his left hand toward the lake to see if there was anything abnormal inside it. Although Borg, Lowly, and Laoluin were in the second sky of Nirvana realm, he was not afraid of them. He wanted to see the lake's abnormality first, and he then would decide if he should go back and kill those 3 people or enter the lake to check. He slowly stretched his hand into the lake, quietly searched for the abnormal fluctuations under the lake. Suddenly, a huge force came from the depth of the lake. This force was so powerful that Cheyenne's face changed instantly. He wanted to retract his hand, but it was too late. It was as if there was a certain kind of demon under the lake pulling his arm and dragging him into the water. Splash! A trace of horror appeared on Cheyenne's face when he fell into the lake and quickly disappeared without leaving any trace. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.